Chapter 1002. Reports of what had happened in the southern continent reached the various factions, and only now did they understand what had happened. Why the Allied army failed. Why had the Knight dynasty suddenly exploded out with the power to unify the southern continent. So it was that mysterious faction that had been supporting them. Back then, the legatees had met with that mysterious faction's people. In other words, they were at the place where Ugra was sealed. They had originally wanted to break the seal, but they had almost been devoured by the seal. The feeling the mysterious cloaked man gave them was extremely terrifying, and they didn't dare to attack him. Back then, the mysterious cloaked figure had arrogantly warned the entire dark demon world to be careful and not offend the Knight dynasty, or else they would have to bear the consequences. Moreover, they had destroyed the vile dynasty's 800 city lords and countless wyverns. Just a small team had been able to easily destroy the vile dynasty. It could be seen just how terrifying that team was. Back then, that team had been quite powerful, and they had raised the Knight dynasty, which had originally been one of the weakest factions in the dark demon world southern continent. This made them feel quite wary, and they were worried that the mysterious faction would act against them. However, after the vile dynasty had been destroyed for so long, that mysterious faction had not acted, and the Knight dynasty had obediently developed. Compared to them, it was much slower. From the news that the Knight dynasty had received, the mysterious faction had already disappeared. Without the mysterious faction's help, they did not pay much attention to the Knight dynasty at all. Now that so much time had passed, they started to forget about the Knight dynasty's existence. Only when the Knight dynasty had devoured 3 top-tier factions and been surrounded by the dark demon world's southern continent did they once again notice the Knight dynasty. This was because the mysterious faction had only acted once, and after such a long time, many people had forgotten about its existence. There was also another reason. Back then, the 800 city lords had been quite powerful, but now they were only average. Which top-tier faction did not have a few hundred city lords? By now, most of the top-tier factions had already met the requirements. As such, they did not pay much attention to that mysterious faction. Before, they had thought that the Knight dynasty would not be able to resist and would be destroyed by the Allied army. However, the mysterious organization had once again attacked. Not only had it destroyed the Allied army, but it had also taken over the southern continent of the dark demon world. This was simply too shocking. No one had ever thought that this mysterious organization would be so terrifying. It turned out that the 800 city lords from before had been a small team. Now, such a powerful force had appeared, and they were not even sure if it was all of them. That mysterious faction's strength was unfathomable. What now? All parties gathered together to discuss this matter urgently. If they couldn't think of a quick solution, they would be in danger. Someone suggested, no matter what, we should gather all of the power of the remaining 3 continents. Even if that faction is unimaginably powerful, we can't just give up and fight them to the death. Someone else suggested, this is a matter of the dark demon world's southern continent, and it has nothing to do with us. The southern continent's factions allied together to destroy the Knight dynasty, which caused the mysterious faction to act. We can remain neutral. After devouring the southern continent, that mysterious faction most likely won't act again. That's because that power is so powerful. Why did they wait until now to attack? Those people must have angered that mysterious power. However, just in case, we should still form an allied army to defend. Someone else suggested, how about we negotiate with that mysterious faction? They've already conquered the southern continent, so let's just give it to them. As long as we're safe, it'll be fine. Everyone in the council expressed their different opinions, each with their own reasons. They began to argue, but no decision was made. Your Majesty, we've conquered the entire southern continent and are now cleaning up, Bai Qi said as he respectfully bowed to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gave a pleased smile. Qin had obtained another continent, and if he could completely devour it, Qin's overall strength would rise to a whole new level. At the same time, even though he did not have a precise tally of the other gains from conquering the southern continent, he felt that they would be quite large, enough to make Zhao Fu feel delighted. By now, Zhao Fu had received some information about the other continents, and he thought for a moment before saying, "Quickly clean up and continue to attack the Western continent. It's best if we do it as quickly and ferociously as possible." "Yes, Your Majesty." Bai Qi thought about it and understood Zhao Fu's intentions. He smiled and nodded, following which Great Qin's forces started to move towards the western continent of the Dark Demon world. Immediately, after hearing about this, everyone in the western continent felt incredibly terrified. Everyone hurried over, worried that the mysterious faction would destroy them. The other two continents were also greatly shocked and cried out, "That mysterious faction is not satisfied with devouring the southern continent and wants to devour the western continent as well. Their appetite is simply too big. Can't they not be too greedy? Aren't they afraid of dying from overeating?" The thing that everyone was worried about had happened, and they had to quickly move out, or else the entire Dark Demon world would fall. That mysterious faction was simply too ambitious, and if they really wanted to conquer the Dark Demon world, they would have to fight to the death. Under such a massive threat, everyone in the Dark Demon world started to panic. They had never thought that the battle to destroy the Night Dynasty would instantly affect the entire world, causing the entire Dark Demon world to fall into danger. This was simply too shocking. Countless Dark Demon people hurried towards the western continent. They had to stop the mysterious faction. Otherwise, if they destroyed the western continent, they would not be able to keep their two remaining continents. When that time came, they would either die or submit to the Night Dynasty. After all, the Night Dynasty had an indescribable relationship with them, and it was possible that the Night Dynasty would unify the Dark Demon world and become the only dynasty in the Dark Demon world. The entire Dark Demon world would belong to the Night Dynasty, and they would not have any chance at all. However, with their proud and noble personalities, how could they allow themselves to submit to someone else? The situation in the Dark Demon world became quite tense, and the ordinary residents paid great attention to this matter. After all, this concerned their survival, and some residents started to feel afraid, hoping that they would not be destroyed by the Night Dynasty. By now, Great Qin and its army had already killed their way into the western continent of the Dark Demon world. They gave off a ferocious ocean-like aura as they swept through region after region. In just a few moments, they had conquered hundreds of regions. Chapter 1003. In terms of numbers, the other factions had a great advantage, but in terms of aura, Qin's side was much stronger. Countless city lords wore black cloaks and gave off terrifying auras as they stood in the sky. Countless wyverns circled around them, and there were also heavily armored giants on the ground. The most terrifying ones were the 8 aquatic beast kings. They lined up in a row, and their terrifying auras caused space to twist. They flooded toward the other side's people. After conquering hundreds of regions in the western continent, the other factions arrived. Qin could only stop, and more people continuously gathered. Zhao Fu was also dressed in a black cloak and gave off an incredibly terrifying aura. It was like a massive, formless weight that weighed down on everyone's bodies, causing their expressions to fall. They had never seen such a powerful aura before. What does the Dark Demon race have to say? Our faction didn't want to make trouble and destroyed the vile dynasty as a warning. However, you still dare to offend us. You've angered us, and destroying the Dark Demon world is as easy as lifting a single hand. Do you still want to resist? Zhao Fu coldly harumphed, his voice containing an intense, killing intent and a trace of condescension and disdain. Facing Zhao Fu's condescension and disdain, the other factions felt even more uneasy. Even though they had more people than the other side, they did not know the true strength of that mysterious faction. If that mysterious faction had sent even more experts, what would they do? Just the cloaked figure in front of them would require thousands of city lords to work together to deal with. If a few more came, the Dark Demon world would not be able to survive. A person breathed in and nervously walked out, saying, "Sir, the ones who attacked you were the southern continent's factions, and they've already been destroyed. They brought this upon themselves, but the other continent's factions did not participate at all. We had no intention of angering you. Humph. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and said, domineeringly and arrogantly, "It's your dark demon race that's in the wrong, so your dark demon world will suffer. Before, we didn't care about a new world like yours, but now we're going to destroy it. Our race's true experts are about to arrive. You want to stop them with just your strength? You're dreaming. Today, we're going to enslave your dark demon race and offer up all of your women and treasures. You lowly race, haha." These words caused the other factions to feel quite angry, but they could only endure it. If the other side's true experts descended, the entire dark demon race would be doomed. Moreover, if they fought now, of course, they did not have much of an advantage. Even if they won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory, and they would suffer massive losses. They did not have any confidence at all against this mysterious faction. Now, Zhao Fu felt quite nervous. Now, all of Qin's faction's power had gathered. If they fought of Qin, they would lose. And the Qin of fighting, they of the battle, they of wood, of Zhao, they of yin, of Zhao Chun, of he of a, of war. Zhao Fu, he of Zhao Zhao, he of Fu, of the Qin demon world. Right now, Zhao Fu was just putting on an act to scare the other side. As such, he had to act tough and could not show any weakness. Before, after Zhao Fu had received news about the other continents, he had made plans to attack the other continents. If the Dark Demon World's continents allied together to attack, Zhao Fu would not be able to defend. After all, he had only just conquered a continent, so Qin had to take the initiative to attack and act as if he could easily destroy the Dark Demon World. If he did not do this, Qin would be at a disadvantage and be restricted by the other continents. Back then, if they had chosen to defend the southern continent, they would not have been as afraid of Qin as they were now. After all, they might have guessed Qin's strength and allied together to attack. Now that Qin was acting as if he could easily destroy their world, they naturally feared Qin and did not have any confidence. It could be said that while Zhao Fu looked incredibly domineering and arrogant, he was actually quite timid inside. If they really started a fight, Zhao Fu would immediately give the order to retreat and preserve as much strength as possible. Zhao Fu's side did not act, and the other side did not dare to act either, resulting in a stalemate. Oomph. You want to enslave the Dark Demon race? Are you taking the Night Dynasty as well? You'd better watch your mouth. We didn't agree on this. Don't go too far. A furious voice sounded out in the sky. It was Yi Tsong's voice. This caused the various city lords to feel quite startled. They had never thought that Yi Tsong would suddenly appear and say such words to oppose the cloaked figure. What was going on? Was Yi Tsong helping them? Were they starting to fight amongst themselves? However, that mysterious figure was insulting the entire Dark Demon race, and Yi Tsong was also a member of the Dark Demon race. This included everyone in the Night Dynasty. From what everyone understood, the Night Dynasty should have long since been controlled by that mysterious faction, but it seemed that the situation was different from what they had expected. Zhao Fu glared at Yi Tsong and made a furious expression as he said, "It was your Dark Demon race that angered us first. Making you our slaves is already being lenient. Your Dark Demon race should thank us. Becoming our slaves is an unparalleled glory for you." The Night Dynasty's expression was calm as it said seriously, "Our Dark Demon race is part of the Demon race and is one of the most powerful of the 8 great races. How could we become your slaves?" Zhao Fu's gaze became cold, and he looked incredibly murderous as he said, "You're seeking death. Do you think your Dark Demon race can stop us? What a joke." Right after speaking, Zhao Fu's massive aura covered the Night Dynasty, looking like he was about to attack. This scene caused the Night Dynasty city lords and the other city lords to feel quite confused. Why did it seem like these two people were fighting amongst themselves? It was not just the other factions that had not expected this. The Night Dynasty's people had not expected this either. They had never thought that the two of them would become hostile. Before, they had thought that the mysterious faction was helping them, but now, It wanted to destroy them. The Night Dynasty's city lords could not help but feel nervous. Looking at the cloaked city lord Qin, they were afraid that he would suddenly attack them. This caused the various factions to feel half happy and half worried. They were happy that the Night Dynasty and the mysterious faction were fighting amongst themselves, making it much easier for them to deal with the mysterious faction. However, they were worried that this mysterious faction was far more terrifying than they had imagined. That person had never placed the dark demon race in his eyes, and even though they felt quite angry, he most likely had the strength to do so. Should we fight? Chapter 1004. Ha ha! Yitsong suddenly loudly laughed, attracting countless gazes as he said, I knew this day would come, which is why I signed the highest grade blood contract with you all. Now, you don't dare to kill me, or else you'll die a horrible death. You! Zhao Fu roared furiously, and his powerful aura swept out like a wild gale, causing everyone to feel incredibly shocked. They also felt admiration towards Yitsong. He dared to speak to such an expert and was not afraid of being blasted into smithereens. Xing! Within the crowd, the cloaked figure took out a gray crystal sword and sent powerful energy into it, causing it to give off an incredibly dangerous sword light as if it wanted to kill Yitsong. Yining Shuang did not understand what was going on, but seeing that her man was going to kill her family's legatee, she could not help but step out. She came to Zhao Fu's side and looked quite troubled as she pleaded, Honey, don't be like this. Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He had not expected Yining Shuang to come out. In actuality, Zhao Fu had not acted from the start. And how could Zhao Fu have acted? After all, Yitsong and Zhao Fu were the same person, and he was just putting on an act to give Yining Shuang a chance to retreat. Now that Yining Shuang had come out, Zhao Fu had a way out. Everyone watched as the powerful cloaked figure coldly harumphed and looked at Yitsong as he said, In the future, you don't need to rely on me for the Night Dynasty's matters. Following this, he hugged Yining Shuang and turned into a ray of light as he disappeared over the horizon. Seeing Zhao Fu leave, the other cloaked figures also turned into rays of light and left. Countless wyverns flapped their wings and left, and the corpse soul commanders also turned and left. The 8 aquatic beast kings looked at the city lords in dissatisfaction. They had followed Qin and devoured countless city lords' corpses, causing them to become much more powerful. In actuality, it was still not satisfied yet, but under Zhao Fu's ferocious might, it could only turn around and give off a powerful aura as it slowly flew backwards. As for the army that had attacked the western continent, it was a black mass that was slowly retreating like the tide. Yitsong turned and looked at everyone with a cold expression as he said, As you can see, I can't control that mysterious faction, and they don't put the Night Dynasty in their eyes at all. I can no longer control the Night Dynasty. Of course, in actuality, I didn't even need to appear. If I had the mysterious faction destroy the Dark Demon world, I would have lost everything and the Night Dynasty would have perished by my hands. I'll give you all a chance to quickly develop and obtain the power to resist the mysterious faction. They're just a department of that faction, and they're responsible for taking care of some troublesome matters. However, they won't put in too much effort, and as long as they do things correctly, the Dark Demon world will be able to repel them. The southern continent of the demon world will be controlled by a mysterious organization. Before you have the strength, it's best if you don't try to attack. This is your final warning. After saying this, Yitsong led the Night Dynasty's people to turn into countless rays of light and disappear over the horizon. Yi in the song. Yi, and, the city, the Chung, the and. This was simply too unbelievable, and no one could come back to their senses. They felt that this was all quite unreal. Everyone rubbed their eyes and found that the ferocious army had truly retreated. They had won this defensive battle. Everyone could not help but let out a sigh of relief before cheering, unable to hide the joy in their hearts. They had not wasted a single soldier, nor had they suffered any losses. Instead, the Night Dynasty and the mysterious faction had retreated because of their internal conflict. This was simply too surprising. They had already prepared themselves for countless casualties and for the mysterious faction to destroy them. However, the situation had changed so quickly that no one had expected it. Everyone had been quite skeptical about Yi Tsang's words, but based on what they had seen, that mysterious faction was definitely above the Night Dynasty. The Night Dynasty was just a tool in their hands, and they did not place the Night Dynasty in their eyes at all. They had even said that they would take the Night Dynasty's people as slaves. From this, it could be seen just how low the Night Dynasty's position was. Perhaps what Yi Tsang had said was true. As an enemy, asking them to quickly develop was not something that a normal person could say. Perhaps if they allowed the mysterious faction to destroy the dark demon world, it would not benefit them at all. In fact, they might even be destroyed by the mysterious faction and become someone else's slave. As such, they had chosen to help them and obtain benefits. They had no idea how Yi Tsang had gotten in contact with that mysterious faction or what their true relationship was. However, they felt that Yi Tsang had harmed both himself and the mysterious faction, dragging the dark demon world into such a crisis. However, some people still felt quite suspicious. Looking at the retreating army, they wanted to chase after them and deal a heavy blow to the mysterious faction. However, things had been resolved so easily, and their 3 continents were safe. They had achieved their goal, and if this was destroyed, the mysterious faction would be enraged and move out. The dark demon world would be destroyed at their hands. They could not guarantee this, and they were afraid that the mysterious faction really did have such great power. As such, after hesitating for a moment, they decided to give up. Moreover, the most important thing now was not to attack, but to create powerful defenses. They could not allow others to freely move around the continent and attack so many regions in an instant. They had to create powerful defenses so that they would have a trace of defensive power in the future. After hearing about this, the ordinary people all let out a sigh of relief. Yi Tsang's name was now known by the entire world, and what was shocking was that he was called a hero. It was because of him that the mysterious faction had stopped invading, saving the dark demon world. Everyone's goodwill towards him greatly increased. Even though he belonged to the mysterious faction, his heart was on the dark demon race's side, as he was also a dark demon. Zhao Fu had never thought that this would happen, nor did he care too much about it. After returning from the western continent, he first refused Yi Ningxuang's offer to serve him out of gratitude before ordering people to start constructing defenses around the southern continent. Zhao Fu was quite afraid that the mysterious faction would attack, so he first protected the southern continent and cut off all connections with the outside world. The various factions also hurriedly constructed defenses to protect their continents. Both sides quickly constructed defenses, afraid that the other side would attack. However, neither side knew what the other side was thinking, which was quite amusing. Chapter 1005. First, there were 21,000 cities, which was quite shocking. It was the first time that Qin had obtained so many cities, and this was almost half of Qin's original cities. With these 20,000 or so cities, Qin's strength had greatly increased. Apart from cities, there were also the population and soldiers, which were even more shocking. After conquering the dark demon world's southern continent, they had obtained 10 billion people, and 800 million of them could provide Stage 1 soldiers. This made Zhao Fu feel incredibly delighted. Moreover, the dark demon world's southern continent had 12,000 regions in total, and even though they belonged to the Night Dynasty on the surface, they now belonged to Qin. A quarter of the dark demon world's fate was being slowly devoured by Qin. It could be said that Qin's fate was only slightly weaker than that of a dukedom kingdoms, and no Marquisate kingdom could compare to it. After all, it now occupied 4 continents, and some of them were incredibly large. After calculating the gains, Zhao Fu felt incredibly delighted. With this much power in Qin, if the 3 continents suddenly attacked, Zhao Fu felt quite confident in dealing with them and did not have to worry as much. Now that the heavenly domain boundary had not been destroyed, Qin could not bring these people back, and he had to stay here to defend the cities. Zhao Fu could only give all of the things he had obtained to the Night Dynasty. Right now, the Night Dynasty's main task was to digest this power and establish a kingdom. Even though Zhao Fu was quite worried that the human world would suddenly attack Qin, Zhao Fu could not leave. After all, he had just conquered the southern continent, and there were still the 3 other continents spying on him. There were also potential rebellions within, so he had to use great power to suppress them. With Qin present, the 3 continents would not dare to attack the southern continent, and the dark demon people who had submitted to Qin would not dare to rebel either. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu went outside and found that the Night Dynasty's people were all looking at him with a trace of fear. Wherever he went, they would immediately retreat in fear. Zhao Fu could not help but laugh. These people really thought that he would destroy the Night Dynasty and make everyone in the Night Dynasty his slaves. Zhao Fu's act had been incredibly realistic, and many people had been scared, worried that Qin would do something to them. However, only the people closest to him would understand Zhao Fu. For example, when Zhao Fu gave the order, Bai Qi immediately understood Zhao Fu's intentions. There was no need to explain too much. Perhaps there were spies from the 3 continents. Zhao Fu controlled Yi Tsong to come out and appease the Night Dynasty's people, telling them to return to normal and not to worry too much. Half a month later, the situation in the Dark Demon world gradually calmed down. Neither side wanted to provoke the other side, so there was no need to fight. As both sides completed their defensive measures, the situation naturally calmed down. The Night Dynasty had begun to unify the southern continent and gain control over it. Countless residents submitted to them, and the threat of rebellion was eliminated. Something else worth mentioning was that the southern continent was now separated by countless isolation barriers. These barriers were even more complicated and difficult to break through, and they would not be as easily destroyed as before. At the same time, a large portion of the ocean was locked down, and almost no one could use teleportation channels to travel to or from the southern continent. They could only travel by boat, and they could not even fly because there were magic formations that restricted flight. It could be said that the southern continent was now quite stable, and even if the Allied army attacked, Qin would have time to react. As such, it was time for Qin to return. Zhao Fu left this place to the Night Dynasty and allowed them to quickly establish a kingdom. After returning to the human world, there were still no changes, and Qin continued to clear out regions and build a great wall. Zhao Fu went to the refining pavilion. This time, Zhao Fu had obtained 4 nation armaments and 3 sect armament from the factions that had attacked the Night Dynasty. After the battle in the southern demon region, Zhao Fu found that he had made a big mistake. Pursuing the pinnacle of one's power meant gathering all of his nation armaments and sect armaments on himself. That power would naturally be terrifying to the extreme. Zhao Fu had this kind of thinking because he had always been threatened by top-tier experts, and the battles were either one-on-one battles or one-on-many battles. However, this time was different. The 7 factions with sect armaments did not work together to attack Zhao Fu, and they instead split up to attack others. If it wasn't for Zhao Emo, Elise, Bai Qi, and the other generals on Qin's side, Zhao Fu would not have been able to deal with them all by himself. No matter how strong Zhao Fu was, he could only deal with one place by himself. If many people attacked from different places, Zhao Fu would not be able to split himself and appear on multiple battlefields at the same time. Zhao Fu felt that this was one of Qin's biggest weaknesses, and he had to fix it. Otherwise, if the enemies found out about this, Qin would have to pay a heavy price. As such, Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that he would only refine nation armaments in the future and not use sect armaments. Nation armaments and sect armaments were 2 different things. One was a kingdom, while the other was a sect. Qin destroyed kingdoms and devoured their fate, people, and territories, fusing them into one. He had to refine nation armaments, but he did not use sect armaments. This was because sects could coexist with kingdoms. A kingdom could have countless sects, and a sect could also have countless kingdoms. Qin was a kingdom faction and not a sect, so everything was based on the kingdom. This was what Zhao Fu was thinking. In the future, he would only use nation armaments and give sect armaments to others to use. Increasing the number of top-tier forces was not one of them, so it would be easier for Zhao Fu to deal with many battles. Using sect armaments required fate, and since Qin was based on the kingdom, the sect armaments could be developed, but they definitely would not be stronger than the kingdom. However, if a sect was too small, it would have little fate, so the sect armaments would be weaker. Sect armaments also required a large amount of fate in order to unleash greater power. As such, if one wanted to use the sect armament's power, they would have to develop the sect first. Zhao Fu did not want to nurture the sect too much and divide Qin's fate. Qin should be based on the kingdom, as there were many hidden dangers to sects being too powerful. As such, Zhao Fu thought of another way to ensure that the sect was powerful without reducing Qin's overall strength. That was to truly fuse these sects into Qin and make them subsidiary sects of Qin. Their fate would be connected to Qin's fate, and the stronger Qin was, the stronger their subsidiary sects would be. The weaker Qin was, the weaker their subsidiary sects would be. Chapter 1006. There was also the matter of choosing a sect master. Sect armaments did not need to be refined and could be used by the sect master, which was much better than nation armaments. Before, Zhao Fu had a sect which was the demon god sect. Now, Zhao Fu planned to step down and hand the position of sect master to Elise. At the same time, Zhao Fu would find suitable people to appoint as sect masters for the 3 sects that he had obtained. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as a massive rainbow-colored cauldron appeared in the air, giving off a massive aura. The 4 nation armaments were slowly refined before turning into motes of light and dissipating, and the 4 nation armaments slowly descended from the air. Zhao Fu caught the 4 nation armaments and looked at them before placing them in the city hall to be nurtured by Qin's fate. Days passed, and the regions that Qin had cleared out continuously increased. The population also grew, and there were fewer and fewer people to manage. As such, the second imperial examination was held to select officials for Qin. Back then, Qin had not yet unified China, and the people who participated were mostly people from the Rising Qin Academy, as well as some educated indigenous residents. Most of the people were from the Rising Qin Academy. Now, the Rising Qin Academy was naturally the #1 academy in the world, and countless upper-class nobles and celebrities wanted to send their children there to become part of the Rising Qin Academy. As such, the Rising Qin Academy became a holy land for scholars. In the human world, there was no academy that could compare to it. The various top-tier factions nurtured academies and academies, as they nurtured their own factions' culture and ideology. For example, China's 4 great ancient kingdoms had nurtured their own academies, which had been quite effective. Back then, the Great Han Academy was the most famous academy because it had been established by the Confucian school. However, after Qin unified China, countless factions had been destroyed, and these academies had disappeared. As such, Qin's Rising Qin Academy became the #1 academy in the world. However, the situation was quite different because Qin had fused with the 100 schools of thought, and there were many different races. It required even more outstanding ideologies and talents, and the Rising Qin Academy was facing many challenges. Zhao Fu wanted to take this opportunity to see what the 100 schools of thought was capable of, as well as the opinions of the other races. This was quite important to an empire, as only then would it be possible to unify the empire. The imperial examination system was still the same as before, with the preliminary examinations followed by the court examinations. All parties attached great importance to it, because it was undoubtedly a chance for them to stand out and rise to the top. Once they passed, they would no longer be ordinary people, but would enter the officialdom and become an official of the imperial court of the Qin state, holding the power of the Qin state. Those who had been demoted to the status of untouchables were extremely excited. Once the announcement was made, as long as one was able to enter the court examinations, regardless of whether they were hired or not, their family and friends would be exempted from the status of untouchables. It could be said that if one person was talented, the whole family would be happy. Of course, it was not only the imperial examinations, but also the military selections. The military selections would be held at the same time. The purpose of the selection was to select military officers with great potential for Qin and then focus on training them. In this world, in addition to the competition of military force, there was also the competition of talents. Zhao Fu also valued this point. 7 days later, after many rounds of selection, it was time for the court examinations. The scene was even grander than the first examination. Countless students were already there, looking incredibly excited and nervous as they waited for the arrival of the Emperor of Qin State. His Majesty has arrived. A loud cry sounded out as tens of thousands of people immediately knelt and cried out, "Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor!" This scene was quite grand, and Zhao Fu smiled as he walked out. There were hundreds of people behind him, some wearing Taoist robes and some wearing Taoist robes. Some looked quite mysterious, while others looked quite simple and down-to-earth. Zhao Fu smiled as he walked out. Before, if these people appeared together, they would have given everyone a big fright, and countless people would have made way for them. No faction dared to offend them, not even the Huaxia dynasty. After all, these were the sect leaders of the 100 schools of thought, and all of them had extraordinary abilities. Moreover, there were so many of them, and even the top-tier factions did not dare to offend them. Instead, they treated them as esteemed guests, as they would be of great help to their factions. However, none of them were displeased at all, and their expressions were calm, and neither servile nor overbearing as they followed behind Zhao Fu. Only Zhao Fu could make them act like this, and they were completely convinced that he was the Emperor of Qin State. The imperial examination officially began. Zhao Fu sat at the top, and the various sect leaders and ministers sat at the side, looking at their disciples with concern. If their disciples performed well, they would naturally be favored by Qin State, and if they did not, they could only blame themselves. The most important thing about the imperial examination was that it was fair, and it gave everyone a chance so that they could stand out. In the end, the imperial examination's top scorer was chosen, and this person surprised everyone. She was not a student of the Rising Qin Academy, nor was she an indigenous resident, nor was she an imperial prince. Instead, she was a woman dressed in Confucian robes and gave off a boundless aura. Lu Lingxian and Li Muqing both smiled. As long as a woman became the top scorer, they would have an additional helping hand. It had already been said before that the Qin state was divided into many factions. Of course, the reason for this was because of their subjective opinions and different ways of doing things. They did not oppose each other, nor did they have any deep enmity. Zhao Fu would not allow such a thing to happen. The first place was that woman, the second was a young man from the Rising Qin Academy, and the third was a young man from the Taoist school. This time, Zhao Fu did not give them a topic, but let them express themselves freely, mainly their opinions and theories. Therefore, not only could people from the Taoist school be selected, but people from other schools could also be selected to be officials, unlike what they had done before. For example, did the disciples of the agricultural school have to farm and could not be officials? The disciples of the medical school could only cure people and could not be officials? This idea was very old-fashioned. The real elites were very outstanding, and Zhao Fu tried to let them work for Qin State. The top 3 of the imperial examination were summoned by Zhao Fu. Under the envious and admiring gazes of the crowd, they came to Zhao Fu and bowed to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu said with a smile, "You are the top 3 of this imperial examination, and you are also the best of the best. In the future, you should work hard for Qin State, and I will give you a reward for your excellent performance in this imperial examination." "Your Majesty, I don't want any reward." This time, the top scorer was the woman dressed in Confucian robes. She bowed to Zhao Fu and said respectfully. Zhao Fu was stunned. He had just learned about her and knew that her name was Li Shaoling, but he did not know anything else. Chapter 1007. Hearing this, Li Shaoling felt that the emperor in front of her was not as cruel and cold-blooded as the rumors said. She lightly breathed out and calmed down her nervous and fearful emotions. She knelt on the ground and kowtowed as she said, "This lowly one is from the Confucian faction. Please pardon the Confucian faction and stop the slaughter of the Confucian faction. This lowly one has no other requests." The Confucian faction? Hearing these words, Zhao Fu's expression became cold. How could someone from a Confucian faction sneak into the imperial examination? The Confucian faction was a forbidden religion of Qin, and anyone related to it had to be severely punished. However, this woman in front of him had not been severely punished and had even dared to appear in front of him and publicly say that she was from the Confucian faction. She was simply too bold. Zhao Fu's gaze fell on the woman's body, and he said somewhat angrily, "Do you know that you're seeking death? If you could hide your identity, perhaps you would be valued by Qin. You revealed your identity and wanted to plead for the Confucian faction, but the Confucian faction brought this upon themselves." Sensing Zhao Fu's cold intent, Li Shaoling felt a trace of fear in her heart. However, she still raised her head and said resolutely, "Your Majesty, that was the decision of the higher-ups of the Confucian faction and has nothing to do with the countless ordinary Confucian faction disciples. Since ancient times, scholars have been counted as half Confucian. Your Majesty, do you know how many people from the Confucian faction you've killed?" "Ha!" Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he said, "Do you think we care about the lives and deaths of the Confucian faction? Those who do wrong must pay the price. We know that the Confucian faction was at the forefront of the rebellion against Qin." Sensing Zhao Fu's anger, Li Shaoling immediately lowered her head and did her best to show her humbleness as she replied, "Your Majesty, this lowly one knows that the Confucian faction angered Qin, but countless ordinary Confucian faction disciples are truly innocent. They paid the price for this and have already received the punishment they deserve. Please spare the Confucian faction, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, you're a wise ruler. Qin has severely punished the Buddhist faction, Confucian faction, and Mahis faction disciples, and it was their decision to escape to other continents. Most ordinary disciples had nothing to do with this, so please spare the three factions." At this moment, a sect leader walked out and bowed to Zhao Fu. Li Muqing stepped forward, bowed, and said, "Your Majesty, according to Qin's rules, I can be counted as a disciple of the Confucian faction and will also be severely punished. However, I have always been loyal to Qin. I feel that Qin's severe punishment of the three families is enough. Your Majesty, please take back the order to kill the three families." "Your Majesty, although the three sects are in the wrong, they are also useful. They can help Your Majesty stabilize the Qin Empire," the cloaked headmaster of the Yin-Yang school said. "Your Majesty, please be wise and withdraw your orders." The various sect masters also stood up and said in unison. They had personally seen Qin massacre the three families, and their actions were incredibly bloody. Who knew how many innocent people had died because of this, and they couldn't bear to see this. Back when Qin had just unified the Qin Empire, he had to use violence to suppress all resistance. At this time, they definitely didn't dare to say too much, or they would be implicated. Now, some time had passed, and the situation in the Midland continent had stabilized. However, Qin had continuously persecuted the three families, so they couldn't help but plead for leniency. Of course, this was also because they had a good relationship with the three families. In actuality, Li Muqing and Li Si already knew about this. They had brought Li Shaoling into the examination hall, and even though they knew that she was talented, they hadn't expected her to become the top scorer. Before, they had thought that it would be enough for Li Shaoling to become one of the top three, and they could plead for Zhao Fu to spare some ordinary people. After all, too many people had been killed. In the past, the academies established by the Confucian faction had been uprooted. All the students had been killed, and their relatives had been severely punished. Countless temples have been destroyed by Qin, and countless monks have been killed. This would definitely be the darkest history of the three families in the future. In the entire Qin Empire, no one dared to offend Zhao Fu, so they could only use this method to let Zhao Fu see the value of the Confucian faction. Plus, Zhao Fu was in a good mood. so he dared to do this. In history, Li Si was also a member of the Confucian faction, and this was the last time he had helped the Confucian faction. Now, it was up to their majesty to deal with this. If they were to be punished, those who had pleaded for leniency today would be punished, and he would not be an exception. Zhao Fu sat on the throne and pondered. In fact, he didn't take the three families too seriously. It was just a small matter. At first, he was just angry because the three families insisted on going against Qin, so Zhao Fu wouldn't be lenient. Repaying evil with good? How to repay good with good? Zhao Fu didn't like the Confucian faction, but he had killed enough people. In actuality, he had captured many of the three families' disciples and brought them into the imperial palace. These people were naturally beautiful, and their figures were extremely slim and graceful. They also gave off a strong phoenix chi. The women from the Confucian faction, Buddhist faction, and Mai's faction all had their own characteristics, especially the Confucian women who wore scholarly robes and the Buddhist women who wore monastic robes. However, Zhao Fu didn't touch those women because he didn't have time, and there were simply too many of them. All right, we will revoke the punishments against the three families. Originally, everyone had been quite nervous, afraid that they would anger Zhao Fu and be killed. However, after hearing this, they were delighted and thanked the emperor. Li Shaoling looked incredibly grateful and continuously kowtowed to Zhao Fu. She was unable to hide the happiness in her heart and smiled. Because of her pleading, he had saved countless people from the three families. Zhao Fu did not pay too much mind to this small matter, and he had her rise. He also gave some rewards to the top 10 people before giving orders to nurture the people who had won and give them official positions to solidify Great Qin's rule. Soon, another 3 months passed, and it was January of the 5th year. Roar, roar, roar. 9 dragons' roars shook the entire dark demon world. Countless people heard these 9 terrifying dragons' roars and looked towards the south, where the Night Dynasty was. The heavens and earth gradually darkened as clouds swirled. All of the world's power quickly gathered towards the Night Dynasty. In the sky above the Night Dynasty, 9 demon dragons circled in the sky, giving off terrifying auras. The Night Dynasty's people all looked incredibly excited because the Night Dynasty had finally established a kingdom. What's more, it was a level 1 marquee kingdom right from the start. In just 3 months, the Night Dynasty had cleared out 1,000 or so regions and built a Great Wall. Because of time constraints, they had only cleared out so many regions. Zhao Fu wanted the Night Dynasty to establish a kingdom as soon as possible. Now that it had established a kingdom, the Night Dynasty's overall strength had gone through massive changes. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take to clear out the entire continent? Zhao Fu needed the Night Dynasty to establish a kingdom in order to resist the other 3 continents. After establishing the Night Dynasty, Zhao Fu felt much more confident. Chapter 1008. The higher beings outside had all left, and no one knew what had happened. Zhao Fu was quite delighted because with the higher beings outside, Zhao Fu had not dared to take a step out of the legacy land over the past few months. If there was anything, he would send ordinary people to deal with it. That way, even if something happened, the consequences would not be too severe. Now that the higher beings had left, Zhao Fu felt the pressure on him lessen. He did not have to worry about the threat of the higher beings anymore, and he could now enter and leave the legacy land as he pleased. Zhao Fu did not know why those higher beings had all left. He had tried to ask around, but he could not find anything, so he could only give up. A few days later, Zhao Fu came to the outskirts of the legacy land. At first, he was incredibly cautious and made sure that there was nothing out of the ordinary. Only then did he feel at ease and go to the various large cities. At the same time, he also asked around about what had happened in the past few months. Because of the higher beings, everyone seemed to be quite careful and chose to be quiet, not wanting to make any trouble. The kingdoms that were at war also stopped fighting. Even the most powerful Devil Horn Empire in this region did not dare to make any noise and obediently stayed by the side. After all, A dukedom kingdom was not much in the eyes of a higher being, and the Devil Horn Empire was afraid of being destroyed if they were not careful. From this, it could be seen just how powerful a higher being was. However, after the higher being left, the surroundings became lively again, and people continued to do what they were doing. During this period of time, there were many battles, but the Devil Horn Empire did not start any battles. Instead, it continued to maintain good relations and trade with the surrounding worlds. No one knew when it would bare its fangs again. Zhao Fu continued to ask around and found that there was another big matter, which was that a higher being had taken someone as a disciple. It was not someone from one of the 20 royal kingdoms, but someone from one of the ancient STEM domain's 5 great sects. To be taken as a disciple by a higher being was a massive opportunity, and anyone would feel incredibly envious. Of course, this included Zhao Fu. With a higher being as a backer, he would be able to do as he pleased in the Heaven-Awakened world and would not have to fear anything. Zhao Fu did not dare to appear in front of a higher being because he was afraid that his identity would be exposed. The Heaven Spirit Steel's quest to kill him was still there, and the number of quests was gradually increasing. Now that this sect was connected to a higher being, no one dared to offend them. Everyone wanted to be on good terms with them and did not want to become enemies with them. Everyone knew that they could not afford to offend this faction. Zhao Fu also heard that someone was looking for him. Zhao Fu couldn't help but think of the third prince. Apart from him, no one else would be looking for him. The third prince definitely wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Hearing this news, Zhao Fu remained expressionless, but a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Following this, Zhao Fu heard some good news, which was that a small kingdom wanted to recruit a prince consort. As long as that person became their prince consort, they would be able to obtain much of the kingdom's territory and power. Their princess was also as beautiful as a goddess. Zhao Fu was quite interested in this. Of course, it was not because of the princess, but because of the territory. This small kingdom was at the edge of the grassy world. Zhao Fu did not know when the heavenly domain boundary would disappear, and Qin had successfully invaded the dark demon world and fish scale world. He now had great strength, so Zhao Fu wanted to set up a chess piece in the grassy world to help Qin charge out of the legacy land. With Qin's help, he could slowly invade the grassy world, just like how he had done with the dark demon world and fish scale world. As such, Zhao Fu needed to find a suitable target. It would be best if this target had a small faction so that he could control it. Of course, if it was too small, it would develop too slowly. As such, Zhao Fu felt that this small kingdom was the best target. Even though this small kingdom had given him a lot of territory and power, and the princess was incredibly beautiful, not many people went. After all, this small kingdom was currently in dire straits. There were other kingdoms attacking outside, and they were in a disadvantageous situation. Their defensive lines had already been broken through, and the emperor had just passed away. A few members of the imperial family were fighting for power, and it was a complete mess. Putting aside the fact that they would not be able to obtain anything, they might even bring themselves into trouble. What was more important was that the person who wanted to marry their princess wanted 300 cities. This was not a small number. That small kingdom had 200 or so regions and 900 or so cities, and this person wanted 300 cities, which was a third of that total. This was a blatant robbery. If it was a dukedom kingdom or a royal kingdom, giving this much as a betrothal gift would be quite good. However, for a princess of small barony kingdom to ask for so much, it was a bit too much. Moreover, even if that small kingdom said that it would give them territory and power, it was hard to say whether or not that small kingdom would be destroyed. After all, they were in a very dangerous situation, and if that small kingdom was destroyed, the 300 cities would be gone. That small kingdom's actions could be said to be selling off their princess. Because the situation was quite dire, they were at a disadvantage, and they needed the strength of 300 city lords to defend against an invasion. In this sort of situation, who would spend 300 city lords to marry a princess? This was incredibly irrational, and even the neighboring kingdoms would not be willing to do so. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that spending 300 cities would not be a problem. After all, he had already treated that small kingdom as his own, so Zhao Fu decided to go to that small kingdom. This small kingdom was called the Lulai Kingdom, and the person in charge was the 6-year-old emperor. Of course, a child like him could not do much, and the Empress Dowager was currently assisting the little emperor. The other branches of the imperial family were not convinced and tried to seize power, and those branches of the imperial family held real power. Right now, the little emperor did not even have as much power as those branches of the imperial family, and it was only a matter of time before he was deposed. The princess who was going to be married off was the little emperor's older sister. These 300 cities were most likely not only for dealing with external threats, but also internal threats and solidifying the little emperor's rule. Zhao Fu did not know if the princess was willing to sacrifice herself, but her goal was most likely to ensure her little brother's position as emperor. After returning to Qin, Zhao Fu used items to restore the cities to their original state to prevent his identity from being exposed. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the Lulai Kingdom. "Go and report that I'm here to marry the princess," Zhao Fu said to the guards, dressed in his black cloak. "What? You're here to marry the princess?" The guard looked quite shocked. It had been half a month since the news had spread, and this was the first time someone had said that they were going to marry their princess. After all, with the Lulai Kingdom's current situation, no one would be willing to spend 300 cities to become the princess's son-in-law. Chapter 1009. However, after more than a month had passed, not a single person was willing to come. This was because they knew about the Lulai Kingdom situation. 300 cities were incredibly important to any barony kingdom, and only an idiot would waste 300 cities. Thinking about this, the other branches of the royal family felt at ease, and they felt that it was impossible for anyone to come. However, the matter of waging war against other countries was quite troublesome. On one hand, they wanted to become the emperor and the supreme ruler of the Lulai Kingdom, but on the other hand, the current crisis was quite difficult for them to resolve, and it was possible that they really would be destroyed. As such, they felt quite complicated about this matter. However, if they wanted to seize the throne, they could only do so with external help. Otherwise, if they tried to seize it with brute force, many people would not be willing to accept it. The main branch of the royal family was even more anxious. There were dangers outside and within the royal family, and they desperately wanted power to protect themselves and their kingdom. It was a pity that after waiting for so long, not a single person had come, causing their hearts to feel cold. Seeing the shocked look on the guard's face, Zhao Fu nodded to confirm it. The guard came back to his senses and said, "If you want to marry our princess, you need 300 cities. If you don't have one, please quickly leave, or else you will be beheaded for deceiving the emperor." "I know, go and report it." Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said. Seeing that Zhao Fu had made up his mind, the guard let out a sigh of relief and had Zhao Fu wait here before running into the palace. The various factions had orders that if anyone came to marry the princess, they had to immediately report it to the other factions. Zhao Fu's arrival caused the entire kingdom to tremble, as Zhao Fu's arrival would definitely cause massive changes to the Lulai Kingdom. Within the palace, there was a dignified and graceful woman who had a worried look on her face as she hugged a sleeping boy. Beside her was a beautiful and slim woman who gave off a gentle and quiet aura, and she also had a worried look on her face. Now that the main branch of the royal family was weak, and the other branches of the royal family were continuously trying to recruit people, some of the ministers of the royal family were leaning towards the other branches. The situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous for them. "Greetings, Empress, Princess. There's someone outside who wants to marry the princess." At this time, an imperial guard came to report, causing the two of them to be overjoyed. They hurriedly ordered people to bring Zhao Fu into the palace. The other branches of the royal family were also shocked and hurried to the royal palace. They wanted to know the direction of the matter so that if there were any accidents, they could stop it in time. If that person ruined their plan, then they would make the first move and kill that person. Within the hall, Zhao Fu was already sitting by the side. Following this, a luxurious-looking middle-aged woman and a beautiful woman walked in with a group of palace maids. Zhao Fu cupped his hands and said politely, "Greetings, Empress Dowager." Before coming, Zhao Fu had made preparations and investigated the Lulai Kingdom in detail. He now had accurate information about the Lulai Kingdom and some of the people there. The Lulai Kingdom's Empress Dowager was called Lu Yuyu, and the princess was called Lu Jiwen. The little emperor was called Lu Xiang. Lu Yuyu smiled and nodded in response. She did not care if Zhao Fu knelt or not, as that was something only people with lower status than her would do. Since Zhao Fu could take out 300 cities, his status was naturally not simple. She came to a chair and sat down, saying, "Sir, you should know about the Lulai Kingdom's matters, so there's no need for this empress to say too much. If you can take out 300 cities, this empress will betroth the princess to you, and you will become the Lulai Kingdom's son-in-law." Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled as he replied, "I've already prepared everything. Please don't worry, Empress Dowager." Lu Yu slightly relaxed and smiled as she looked at Zhao Fu, saying, "Sir, you're about to become the Lulai Kingdom's son-in-law. There's no need for you to wear a cloak and hide your appearance, right? Also, if it's convenient, please tell this empress some things about you. That way, this empress will be able to understand you better." The Lulai Kingdom's princess, Lu Jiwen, also blushed and looked at Zhao Fu expectantly. In actuality, no matter what Zhao Fu looked like or what kind of personality he had, as long as he could take out 300 cities, Lu Jiwen had to marry Zhao Fu. This was not just for the Lulai Kingdom, but also for her mother and little brother. However, if Zhao Fu was the kind of person she liked and treated her well, this was naturally what Lu Jiwen hoped for the most. Hearing Lu Yuyu's words, Zhao Fu thought for a moment before taking off his cloak. Now that he was going to become someone else's son-in-law, he indeed could not hide his appearance. The black cloak slowly slid off, revealing Zhao Fu's incredibly handsome face and tall and slim figure. He was dressed all in black, and his black hair fell to his hips. His body gave off a noble and domineering aura, making anyone feel intoxicated. Zhao Fu was not the same Zhao Fu from before. After such a long time, both his aura and appearance had greatly changed. Lu Jiwen's heart quickly thumped. She was quite pleased with Zhao Fu's appearance and aura. Thinking about how this person was going to be her husband in the future, Lu Jiwen's face became red, and she turned to look at her mother. Lu Yuyu's face was also slightly red, and her breathing became ragged as her body trembled, causing Lu Jiwen to feel quite startled. Lu Yuyu's heart was beating quite quickly. Zhao Fu's body seemed to have some sort of magic that stirred up her desires. The phoenix chi within her body also became restless, and she hungrily wanted this man in front of her. Only after a while did Lu Yuyu sense her daughter's gaze. She quickly suppressed her emotions and returned to normal as she smiled and said, "Whether it's in terms of aura or appearance, my beloved son-in-law far surpasses ordinary people. We have no objections, but where is my beloved son-in-law from?" Zhao Fu once again cupped his hands and replied, "This lowly one comes from a distant place and was passing by. I heard that the Lulai Kingdom's princess is as beautiful as a celestial goddess and can be married for 300 cities, so I came here." After saying this, Zhao Fu looked at Lu Jiwen and gave a polite smile, causing her face to become bright red. There were many women by Zhao Fu's side, so he naturally understood women better. However, wasn't this method a bit too despicable? He had done such a thing just to take over their kingdom. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Lu Yuyu thought to herself, Zhao Fu was evidently not from the grassy kingdom and came from another world, so his identity was definitely not simple. If he became the son-in-law, who knew what the consequences would be? In actuality, Lu Yuyu's ideal targets were the princes of the surrounding kingdoms. That way, she would be able to obtain their help. However, the kingdoms attacking the Lulai Kingdom were not simple, and none of them wanted to make trouble. As such, none of them were willing to agree to her request. Chapter 10:10. Now that only Zhao Fu had come, she had no other choice. Otherwise, if someone else tried to seize power, the Lulai Kingdom might be destroyed. As for Zhao Fu's identity, she could only deal with it in the future. Very well, we will betroth the princess to you. Lu Yu made her decision and smiled as she nodded and said to Zhao Fu. A smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he took out a spatial ring and said, "The 300 cities are in this spatial ring. Please accept them, Empress Dowager." A palace maid walked over and took the spatial ring from Zhao Fu's hand and was about to hand it to Lu Yu. At that moment, a few middle-aged men with powerful auras walked in, and the leader directly said, "I will not approve of this marriage. Jiwen is the Lelai Kingdom's princess royal. How could she be married off so casually? Also, this person's identity is unknown, and he might have other motives." Lu Yu slightly frowned. She knew that these people would cause trouble, and she said, "The outer kingdoms are invading, and the Lelai Kingdom's defensive lines have been broken through. The army at the front lines needs this power, so there's no need for you to bring this up. Jiwen will marry him in the future." The middle-aged man felt quite furious. Seeing that Lu Yu was not giving him any face, he said in a threatening tone, "Empress Dowager, you can consider this carefully. Don't regret it in the future." Lu Yu's heart tightened, and she could tell that the other party was threatening her. This meant that they were going to start a rebellion, and Lu Yu could not help but hesitate. Right now, she did not have the Lelai Kingdom's royal seal. After every king's death, the kingdom's fate would fall into chaos, and the successor had to be acknowledged by the royal seal in order to become the true king. However, other people with pure royal bloodline and decent fate could also try to seize power and fight for the throne, which would allow them to receive the royal seal's acknowledgement. As such, Lu Yu could not use the royal seal to remove the power of these branches of the royal family. If she could, she would not have to suffer like this. At first, because of the outer kingdom's invasion, if there was internal strife, the Lelai Kingdom might not be able to protect itself. As such, both sides were quite restrained in order to avoid any large conflicts, which would give the outer kingdoms an advantage. However, things were different now. If Lu Yu obtained 300 cities and resolved the problem of foreign invasions, the royal seal would officially recognize her son as her master. When that time came, it would be much easier to deal with them. Directly crippling a city lord would cause them to lose a large portion of their top-tier battle force. Of course, they had developed their own cities, but they did not have an advantage in numbers. At that time, they only had an advantage in terms of military strength, as they had always held real power. However, seizing the throne like this would be more troublesome. There might be some accidents, so he had to stop Lu Yu now. Even if they started a mutiny now and seized power officially, it would be better than later. However, they were mainly worried about external threats. If they started a civil war at this time, the situation would become very bad, so they only used this to threaten Lu Yu. If she didn't see the big picture, then she couldn't blame them for being unscrupulous. Lu Yu was in a dilemma. On one hand, she wanted to obtain 300 cities to consolidate her power, but on the other hand, she was afraid that the other branches of the royal family would rebel. Once they started a rebellion, it was possible that they would lose, and the other countries would seize this opportunity to destroy the Lelai Kingdom. Suddenly, a light laugh broke the stalemate, and everyone turned to look at Zhao Fu. The middle-aged man coldly harumphed and said, "The Lelai Kingdom's princess won't be getting married. Sir, it's best if you leave as soon as possible to avoid trouble." Zhao Fu turned and looked at the middle-aged man with his terrifying eyes, causing the middle-aged man to feel a chill in his heart. "You're all quite daring to talk back to the Empress Dowager like this. Are you not afraid of death? I've already given the 300 city lords to you. Princess Jiwen should be mine now. This has nothing to do with you, and you have no right to interfere." Seeing that his plan was about to succeed, how could Zhao Fu allow a few people to ruin it? Hearing this, Lu Jiwen's face became red, and she felt quite embarrassed. Lu Yu felt quite delighted because this mysterious person in front of her had chosen to help her. Perhaps there was a chance that things would take a turn for the better, and she would have chance. The members of the royal family furiously glared at Zhao Fu, and the middle-aged man in the lead became even more furious. The trace of fear in his gaze towards Zhao Fu disappeared, and he said coldly, "You're seeking death. This is the Lulai Kingdom's territory. No matter who you are, even if you're a dragon, you'd better crawl here." Boom! A massive aura exploded out, covering the entire hall. The air seemed to become heavy, and the ordinary palace maids and soldiers' faces became pale. This was the power of a Stage 9 expert with a City Lord seal. How could ordinary people withstand it? The middle-aged man coldly looked at Zhao Fu, and that massive aura pressed down towards Zhao Fu. If it wasn't for the fact that he was wary of Zhao Fu's identity, the middle-aged man might have directly killed Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile. Under that massive aura, he was completely fine, and he turned to look at the people that the royal family had brought. "Since you're all gathered here, I'll deal with you all at once." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, everyone felt quite startled and had a bad feeling. Suddenly, an even more powerful aura exploded out, weighing down on everyone's bodies like a mountain. Everyone's expressions fell, and they felt their bodies sink. This power was terrifying, and everyone felt as if they had fallen into an icy cavern, causing their bodies to feel cold. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would have such immense power. Even the Lulai Kingdom did not have such a massive power. Just who was this person? Everyone felt quite shocked. Zhao Fu's identity far surpassed what they had imagined. At that moment, Zhao Fu suddenly acted. He waved his hand, and a formless blade flew out, killing all of the people that the royal family had brought, causing blood to flow all over the ground. Immediately, it was not just the royal family that wanted to escape. Liu Yu's side also felt that the situation was quite bad and wanted to escape. It seemed that this son-in-law selection had recruited an incredible figure. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of chains rang out as countless chains shot out from the air towards the royal family members. The royal family members' expressions fell, and they took out their weapons and exploded out with powerful auras as they unleashed terrifying attacks. However, their attacks were not very effective, and they were only able to break a small portion of the chains. The majority of the chains tightly bound the royal family members, and no matter how they struggled, they could not break free. Chapter 10:11. The shockwaves here immediately attracted a large number of guards, but Zhao Fu did not seem afraid at all. Zhao Fu had no problem dealing with 1,000 or so city lords by himself, but it would be quite difficult for him to deal with an entire kingdom. After all, kingdoms not only had nation armaments, but they also had officials and corps. If they all worked together, Zhao Fu would not be able to defeat them. However, now that the Lulai Kingdom's city lords and main forces had all been taken hostage, there were very few people left to defend. As such, Zhao Fu did not have to be afraid. Seeing the guard about to charge in, Zhao Fu calmly waved his hand, causing a black dragon inscription barrier to spread out and cover the entire hall, isolating the guards outside. Following this, Zhao Fu walked towards the bound members of the royal family. The members of the royal family started to feel afraid, as it was evident that Zhao Fu was going to do something to them. Indeed, Zhao Fu wanted to do something. He came before them and stretched out his hand, sending out a massive wave of energy that hit their chests. They coughed up a mouthful of blood as a few city lord seals appeared. Zhao Fu once again attacked, sending out an even greater wave of energy that hit the few people. The people once again coughed up a large mouthful of blood, and their minds withered. They powerlessly lay on the ground and looked at Zhao Fu hatefully, wanting to cut Zhao Fu into 1,000 pieces. Zhao Fu's first attack was to force out their city lord seals, and his second attack was to cripple their cultivations. Following this, Zhao Fu took out a few black thread-like bugs. These were brain bugs, and they were not ordinary bugs. They were brain bugs that had been fed with Zhao Fu's blood. These brain bugs were not effective against high-grade cultivators, so Zhao Fu could only cripple their cultivations. Now that they were heavily injured, the brain bug were easy to control. Also, the brain bugs were not effective against high-tier bloodlines, so Zhao Fu fed the brain bugs his own blood, giving them the power to resist high-tier bloodlines. After taking out the brain bugs, Zhao Fu threw them into the heads of the royal family members, causing them to howl in pain. The soldiers outside hurriedly attacked the black dragon inscription barrier, but they were unable to break through it at all. Zhao Fu looked at the black dragon inscription barrier and said, "Great Qin, great Qin, great Qin, and great Qin." Lu Yuyu and the others also looked at this scene in horror. They were also within the black dragon inscription barrier, and their bodies seemed to be locked down, unable to move at all. They could only watch. Slowly, the screams died down. Their expressions became numb, and their eyes became empty. Then, they gradually regained their spirit, but it was a different expression. A smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. The overmind worms had successfully taken over their bodies. Zhao Fu turned his head and looked at Yu Yu and the others. This caused Yu Yu and the others to feel a chill in their hearts, and they felt an unprecedented sense of terror. Lu Jiwen hurriedly cried out, "I'm willing to marry you, but don't do anything to my mother." Zhao Fu thought about it and wondered if he should use the overmind worms to control them. Zhao Fu had prepared 2 overmind worms for them, and he had kept them with him. Zhao Fu's plan was to use the overmind worms to control the Lulai Kingdom's core figures. That way, he would be able to control the Lulai Kingdom and make it work for Qin. However, this was outside the Legacy Land, and many people knew about the overmind worms. There were many ways to detect them and suppress them, and this was not like within the Legacy Land. In the fish scale world, Zhao Fu could do whatever he wanted with the overmind worms, but outside the Legacy Land, he had to be careful. There was also the matter of the Lulai Kingdom's young emperor. As the king of a kingdom, he could not be controlled by the overmind worms. Even though Zhao Fu could cripple him, the person controlled by the overmind worms could not inherit the throne. After all, the person controlled by the overmind worms was already dead, and the overmind worms were only controlling their corpse, so they naturally could not become the king. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to keep them. However, he could not do nothing and had to think of other ways to control them. Looking at the graceful and elegant Lu Yuyu, a trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he walked over and stroked her delicate face. Feeling Zhao Fu's touch and his possessive gaze, Lu Yuyu gradually let go of the fear in her heart and instead became excited. Her body enjoyed Zhao Fu's actions. Zhao Fu cultivated the 6 Desire Celestial Art and had a bewitching aura, just like how Mo Yao Air could charm countless men. However, Zhao Fu's bewitching aura only affected women. Moreover, because of the Emperor Phoenix statue, people with more Phoenix Chi were more susceptible to Zhao Fu's control. Lu Jiwen stood by the side and watched as Zhao Fu lightly stroked her mother, and her mother's face became red as if she was enjoying it. Wait, this didn't seem right. Wasn't he choosing a husband for her? Wasn't Zhao Fu here for her? Then, shouldn't he be doing something to her? However, something was off. She found that Zhao Fu was interested in her mother, making Lu Jiwen feel quite complicated. At first, she had felt quite shy about Zhao Fu becoming her future man. Her first impression of Zhao Fu had been quite good, but after seeing his terrifying power, she had felt quite afraid. Now that she saw how much he and her mother loved each other, she did not know what to say. At that moment, Zhao Fu stroked Lu Yuyu's face as he sensed 6 Desires' demonic qi into her body, and he smiled as he said, "They're all under my control. You should know what the Empress Dowager is going to say next. I can protect the Lulai Kingdom's safety and make it even more powerful." Lu Yuyu's thoughts were quite hazy, and her mind was filled with lust. However, she understood that she could only follow Zhao Fu's orders, or else she would be completely controlled, just like the other members of the royal family. Lu Yu lightly nodded and looked at Zhao Fu with lustful eyes as she said, "I understand. I will do as you say." Zhao Fu waved his hand in satisfaction and removed the black dragon inscription barrier. Because Zhao Fu had a barrier, the soldiers attacking from outside could not see what was happening within the barrier. At the same time, the chains binding the royal family members were released. The black dragon inscription barrier disappeared, and countless soldiers flooded in. Just as they were about to attack Zhao Fu, the middle-aged man yelled at them to retreat, and Liu Yu told them to retreat as well. This caused the soldiers to feel quite confused. However, the higher-ups of both sides had given orders, so even though the soldiers did not know what was going on, they still obeyed and retreated. After the soldiers left, Zhao Fu immediately gave orders to the royal family members to defend against the invasion. Now that the royal family members were controlled by the brain bug, they naturally had no objections to Zhao Fu's orders and immediately left. Zhao Fu gave them City Lord seals, but their injuries were quite severe and they needed to rest. Zhao Fu did not need them to fight at the front lines. He only needed them to support the front lines and stabilize the situation. Chapter 10-12. This caused Li Jiwen and the others to feel quite delighted. Zhao Fu had solved the problem that had been bothering them, and now they only needed to work together against the outside world. As long as they could stop the foreign invaders, they would be able to guarantee the Lelai Kingdom's safety. Thank you, Li Jiwen said sincerely to Zhao Fu. Right now, it was all because of Zhao Fu's help. If it wasn't for Zhao Fu's help, they would have been forced to retreat in the face of the threat from the royal family, and they would not have been able to escape the fate of having their power taken away. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and did not mind. Just as he was about to say something, Zhao Fu stopped him. Just as he was about to say something, Liu Yu, who was sitting on a chair, felt her body heat up. She gasped for breath and could not control her body. She stood up and leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace, offering her lips and starting to do it with Zhao Fu. After taking off their clothes in a few moments, the two of them started to do it on the chairs, not caring about the gazes of others. This was the first time Li Jiwen had seen such a passionate scene, and it was her mother doing it with another man. What's more, this person had been her son-in-law, and this scene caused her heart to thump. Her face became bright red, and she turned to leave. However, Li Jiwen could not help but think about her father. He had only passed away 2 months ago, and even though he had treated them quite well, her mother had been incredibly lewd, doing it with another man, and that man was incredibly important to them. Thinking about that, Li Jiwen felt quite complicated, and just as she was about to leave, a wave of energy pressed against her body, and the door to the hall was closed. What happened next was indescribable. Just where did you come from, and what is your goal? I'm sure you're not helping the Lelai Kingdom out of kindness. Liu Yu asked as she sat in Zhao Fu's embrace and lightly patted Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled as he hugged her and said, "Don't worry, you become my woman. In the future, I won't mistreat you. As long as you don't let me down, I'll make you the most noble woman in the grassy race." These words not only shocked Liu Yu, but Li Jiwen, who was leaning on Zhao Fu's other side, was also shocked because these words were not simple. In order to realize what Zhao Fu had said, they had to make the Lelai Kingdom the most powerful kingdom. Liu Yu was naturally the most noble woman in the grassy race, and if the Lelai Kingdom could achieve such a thing, they would be delirious with joy. However, there was another terrifying outcome, which was that Zhao Fu would unify the grassy world and make Liu Yu the most respected person in the world. However, the second possibility was unimaginably difficult, so the two of them leaned towards the first possibility, which was that Zhao Fu could help the Lelai Kingdom become the most powerful grassy kingdom. Liu Yu lightly snorted. "That's not bad. It's not a waste for me to give you my body. Also, you've taken my daughter's body. You better treat her better in the future, or else you'll be in trouble." Li Jiwen's face was red as she hugged Zhao Fu. With her personality, she had never thought that a day would come where she and her mother would serve another man. Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the graceful woman and blushing woman in his arms and lightly nodded. As long as others did not mistreat him, he would not let them down. Hearing Zhao Fu's reply, a smile appeared on Liu Yu's face as she said, "You only know how to use flowery words. You must have countless women." Zhao Fu did not hide anything and nodded. Liu Yu had long since been prepared for this. After all, Zhao Fu's body was incredibly bewitching, and he had domineeringly taken their bodies. If it wasn't for the fact that they had begged for mercy and had a few palace maids to help them, they might have continued. Even so, Liu Yu did not believe that Zhao Fu did not have many women. He most likely had over 100. She had underestimated Zhao Fu and had no idea how many women Zhao Fu had. The number of women Zhao Fu had far exceeded her expectations. Do you want this concubine to call a few more concubines to serve you? Some of them are quite flirtatious, Liu Yu said as she smiled. There's no need. I need to head to the battlefield to deal with the foreign invasion. Zhao Fu softly refused. Just then, he had not been playing around. Zhao Fu had used his 6 desires demonic qi to control them. Now that he had achieved his goal, Zhao Fu turned his attention back to the Lelai Kingdom, which was to quickly take control of the Lelai Kingdom. Then this concubine and Jiwen will wait for you at night. Hearing Zhao Fu refuse, Liu Yu felt quite happy and smiled. After all, no woman wanted to share a man. Moreover, with Zhao Fu on the battlefield, the Lelai Kingdom's crisis would most likely be resolved. Hearing this, Zhao Fu put on his clothes and left the palace. Zhao Fu found a place to rebuild the 300 cities that he had brought. Now, the Lelai Kingdom basically belonged to Zhao Fu, and it was quite weak, so it needed the 300 cities' help. Otherwise, Zhao Fu would not have had to spend 300 cities on the Lelai Kingdom. After all, Zhao Fu had obtained everything, so he did not have to pay the price of 300 cities. By now, Zhao Fu had gone from being a nameless person to being a kingdom protector, directly obtaining the highest authority in the Lelai Kingdom. Everyone felt quite curious about this person who had suddenly appeared, because his appointment had been approved by the Lelai Kingdom's higher-ups. They knew that now that the higher-ups were truly seizing power, they would not be united. Now that he had arrived, the Lelai Kingdom situation was completely different. The various branches of the royal family were actively defending against the invaders, and the threat of internal strife had been eliminated. As such, Zhao Fu's arrival was welcomed by countless people. Zhao Fu found 300 people from the army and asked the little emperor to make them city lords. Of course, it was impossible to casually build cities in someone else's kingdom, and this required the approval of the kingdom's king. This little emperor was only 6 years old and did not understand anything, so everything was decided by Liu Yu. Of course, she fully supported Zhao Fu's decision to help the Lelai Kingdom, and she ordered everyone to cooperate. It could be said that Zhao Fu could do whatever he wanted in the Lelai Kingdom. Zhao Fu took the 300 city lords and quickly flew towards the battlefield. Moreover, Zhao Fu also had 500 wyverns, so it should not be a problem for them to resolve this battle. Zhao Fu knew about this battle. The Lelai Kingdom was at the border of the Grassy Kingdom, and the kingdom attacking them was a kingdom in the Orc world. This kingdom was more powerful than the Lelai Kingdom, and the reason for this battle was because both kings had died. Because the two kingdoms were separated and had different races, there had always been conflict between them. As such, the Lelai Kingdom's king had set up an ambush to kill the opposing king. However, things had gone beyond his expectations. Even though he had successfully killed the opposing king, he had been heavily injured, and in the end, he had died. Chapter 10:13. Zhao Fu had also obtained information about the half-beast people. They had a human body, wolf ears, and a wolf tail. Their hands could sometimes turn into wolf claws, and they were quite well built and had a great advantage in terms of speed. They also had an innate talent, which was that they had a powerful sense of smell. Dealing with them was quite troublesome. Whether it was orcs or half-beast people, they were both outlanders, and outlanders usually had an advantage in terms of physique and speed. In this aspect, humans were quite mediocre. Because of this advantage, the other kingdoms did not want to cause any trouble. More importantly, this was a personal enmity and not an invasion, so there was no need for them to get involved. Zhao Fu led 300 people to the military camp. After hearing about Zhao Fu's arrival, the general in charge of defending this place was quite angry. After all, there was an intense battle at the front lines, and suddenly, the highest command of the battle had been given to an outsider. No one would feel at ease about this, and changing a general at the last moment was a taboo on the battlefield. This would greatly reduce morale. Zhao Fu led his people into the meeting tent. When everyone saw Zhao Fu, they all looked quite displeased and did not seem to welcome him. Sitting at the top was a valiant-looking man who looked to be in his 30s and wore green armor. He coldly looked at Zhao Fu and said, "What methods did you use to confuse the Empress Dowager? She actually let you control the battlefield? Do you know the current situation? Do you know the other side's strength?" By now, Zhao Fu had put on his black cloak. Hearing the general's distrust, Zhao Fu calmly said, "You don't need to worry about this. You just need to listen to my orders. If you disobey, don't blame me for being merciless." These words made everyone feel quite angry, but they endured it. After all, Zhao Fu was someone sent by the higher-ups and had been acknowledged by both sides. On the other hand, hearing Zhao Fu's confident words, most of them felt quite suspicious. However, orders could not be disobeyed, so they could only listen to Zhao Fu's orders. They waited for Zhao Fu to make a mistake before dealing with Zhao Fu. The general coldly harumphed and walked down from his chair and stood to the side. Zhao Fu naturally walked up and sat down. Zhao Fu had a rough understanding of the situation. The half-beast people had broken through the defensive lines and conquered 10 or so regions in the Lalai Kingdom. The Lalai Kingdom had hurriedly constructed defensive measures and was barely able to defend against the half-beast people's attacks. However, as time went on, the half-beast people would send more and more soldiers, and their attacks would become more and more ferocious. The half-beast people would be able to defend against the dynasty. Because the half-beast king had died, the kingdom's fate had fallen into chaos. However, they had taken care of their internal affairs first, and the new emperor had been acknowledged by the royal seal, allowing them to attack the Lalai Kingdom. If it wasn't for Zhao Fu's arrival, the Lalai Kingdom would not have been able to resolve its internal conflicts, and it might have been destroyed. Of course, this was only a rough understanding, and Zhao Fu was not arrogant. He said to the general below, "I need all information on the situation, including information on the other side's general." This caused the general to feel quite startled before feeling slightly relieved. It seemed that Zhao Fu was not an arrogant person, and perhaps he would be able to resolve the Lalai Kingdom's crisis. He felt a bit more convinced, and he ordered people to bring over some detailed information. After receiving the information, Zhao Fu started to look through it seriously. However, soon, a soldier hurriedly reported, "Sir, the central front line is being ferociously attacked by the half-beast people, and the situation is quite dire. Please send reinforcements." The general had wanted to give the order to send reinforcements, but just as he was about to speak, he stopped himself. This was because he was no longer the general, so he could not give any orders. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu, who was sitting at the top. After thinking for a moment, Zhao Fu said, "The soldiers at the central front line are to retreat and let the half-beast people in. The other two lines are to remain where they are and wait for orders." "Wait." The general stopped the soldier and furiously said to Zhao Fu, "The central front line is the main force of the half-beast people's attack. It's fine if you don't send reinforcements, but why are you retreating? Once we retreat, the half-beast people will swarm in from the central front line. When that time comes, it will be impossible to stop them, and even if we can stop them, our losses will be too great." Everyone else could not understand why Zhao Fu had given such an order, so they all objected. Zhao Fu did not mind their objections and calmly said, "I know. Don't worry and just follow my orders." This naturally caused the generals to feel quite displeased. They felt that this was a wrong order, and with the Lalai Kingdom's current strength, if the central front line collapsed, the Lalai Kingdom would be in grave danger. However, just as they were about to object to Zhao Fu's order, an incredibly powerful might covered them, making them feel as if there was a massive boulder weighing down on them. Some of the weaker generals collapsed to the ground, feeling a chill in their hearts. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They now understood why the higher-ups had sent Zhao Fu. This sort of power surpassed anything they had imagined. "Do you have any objections?" Zhao Fu's calm and slightly cold voice sounded out. Everyone lowered their heads, not daring to say anything. Following this, the central front line started to retreat according to Zhao Fu's orders. The other side had not expected the Lalai kingdom to do this, so they did not hold back and directly charged through the central front line, killing their way into the Lalai kingdom's territory. The half-beasts from the other fronts also quickly flew over. There was a large gap in the middle of the defensive line, and countless half-beasts flooded in like a flood. This was the situation of the battle. The Lalai kingdom started to feel as if it was going to be destroyed, and the ordinary soldiers felt a trace of fear. They could not understand why the higher-ups would give such a stupid order. However, the next day, the Lalai kingdom's counterattack began. The army defending the other two fronts started to attack from the sides, cutting off the half-beast path of retreat. This caused the half-beasts to coldly laugh. They had already entered, so it was useless for them to block the retreat path. Their army could kill their way in and destroy the Lalai kingdom before continuing to attack them. They heard that the Lalai kingdom had suddenly changed their general, and that it was an outsider. At first, they were quite wary of Zhao Fu, but after many years of fighting, they knew that the Lalai kingdom was not stupid. Chapter 10:14. Moreover, facing the Lalai kingdom's 300 additional city lords, the half-beasts had already thought of a way to deal with them. Adding on the fact that they were stronger than the Lalai kingdom to begin with, they did not care too much about this. At first, they had been quite wary of the Lalai kingdom's schemes, but now that they knew what was going on, since the Lalai kingdom was seeking death, they did not hold back and directly charged towards the Lalai kingdom's royal city. However, an army quickly stopped them. However, the difference in numbers was quite great. The half-beasts had 35 million soldiers, while the Lalai kingdom only had 10 million soldiers. On the other hand, the half-beasts had 800 or so city lords, while the Lalai kingdom only had 500 or so. In actuality, the half-beasts did not just have this many soldiers. They had also left some soldiers behind to prevent the Lalai kingdom's two other fronts from attacking them from behind, giving them time to destroy the Lalai kingdom. The two armies gave off massive auras as they faced off, and the atmosphere was quite oppressive. An austere aura caused the entire region to become deathly silent. "Ha! Yixiong, I see that you have some skill. How about you pledge your loyalty to the Blue Wolf Kingdom? I won't mistreat you. There's no hope for the Lalai Kingdom now." A burly half-werewolf man laughed heartily in the sky. Yixiong was the name of the Lalai Kingdom's general, and he was currently standing in the sky. The Blue Wolf Kingdom was the kingdom that had attacked the Lalai Kingdom. Facing the other side's arrogance, Yixiong did not reply, and he looked toward Zhao Fu. After seeing Zhao Fu's power, he did not have any objections, and he trusted that Zhao Fu would be able to resolve the Lalai Kingdom's crisis. "Ignore them and just wait to attack," Zhao Fu calmly replied. Yixiong obeyed Zhao Fu's orders and ignored the big half-beast man. The big half-beast man's smile disappeared as he coldly harumphed. "We've given the order to attack." A massive flood of soldiers gave off an unstoppable aura as they charged towards the Lalai Kingdom's army. The sounds they gave off were incredibly shocking, shaking the surrounding tens of thousands of kilometers. At the front were the wolf cavalry, who were incredibly fast and ferocious. The Blue Wolf Kingdom was a level 3 barony kingdom, and they had brought 5 corps. The other 2 legions were the enemies on the other 2 fronts. The Lalai Kingdom was only a level 2 barony kingdom and only had 5 corps. The other 2 corps were responsible for defending against the half-beast army, so there were only 3 corps here. On the battlefield between nations, the role of a legion was extremely important. The addition or loss of a legion would have a significant impact. Roar! The wolf cavalry at the front was a corps, and they used the army chief formation. Streams of gray aura flowed out from their bodies, forming a gray wolf that was hundreds of meters long. It raised its head to the sky and gave off a terrifying roar before rushing over with a terrifying aura. The Lalai Kingdom's corps loudly roared and exploded out with an azure aura, which condensed into an azure rhinoceros that gave off immense power as it charged at the gray wolf. Boom! The two war beasts fiercely collided with each other, creating a terrifying shockwave that swept out like a raging gale. However, the battle between the two war beasts had only just begun. Boom! Boom! Another 4 explosions sounded out on the Blue Wolf Kingdom side as 4 massive auras shook the surrounding 1,000 kilometers. Another 4 corps used the army chief formation. 1 condensed a rat, 1 condensed a boulder, 1 condensed a rabbit, and 1 condensed a fawn. The 4 massive creatures gave off ferocious auras as they quickly flew towards the Lalai Kingdom's army. In battles between nations, one would normally use the army chief formation first because it had massive destructive power. Moreover, even if it was destroyed, there would not be any casualties, and at most, the soldiers would become weaker. The Lalai Kingdom's remaining 2 corps also exploded out. 1 condensed a large rod, while the other condensed a sparrow. They gave off powerful auras as they rushed towards the Blue Wolf Kingdom's army. In terms of numbers, the Lalai Kingdom had lost 2, so they could only use city lords or a large number of soldiers to defend. However, both city lords and soldiers were at a disadvantage. The corps countered the city lords, and using a large number of soldiers to defend would result in countless casualties. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and sent out 150 or so city lords to deal with the 2 massive beasts. With 70 or so city lords dealing with a corps chief formation, it would not be a big problem. Of course, this depended on the corps' strength, as corps were split into different grades, as well as special and normal corps. The Lalai Kingdom originally had 500 or so city lords, but after losing 150, they only had 350 or so city lords, while the other side had 800. Seeing that the Blue Wolf Kingdom soldiers were about to reach them, the Blue Wolf Kingdom's city lords exploded out with powerful auras as they rushed towards the Lalai Kingdom's city lords. A massive battle was about to erupt. On the ground, the 2 armies ferociously clashed. Cavalry against cavalry, infantry against infantry, an intense battle ensued. Countless sounds of weapons clashing could be heard as blood flew everywhere and death continuously spread. Occupying the Lalai Kingdom was quite disadvantageous because they had fewer people, and the Outlanders were quite ferocious when fighting. Seeing this, the Blue Wolf Kingdom was not too surprised, as they had long since expected this. The Lalai Kingdom would not be able to stop them. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura spread out like an ocean, and the entire battlefield felt this terrifying aura, causing everyone to feel terror in their hearts. The sudden explosion of this aura caused the Blue Wolf Kingdom's side to feel quite startled. They looked over and saw that the black-cloaked figure had turned into a powerful ray of light that flashed past, and 20 or so city lord bodies were directly cut in half. Roar! 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 Countless rings were thrown out by that person, and massive wyverns appeared, giving off massive dragon roars. After these wyverns appeared, they flapped their wings, bringing with them wild gales as they sprang towards the Blue Wolf Kingdom soldiers. They sprayed out searing flames and bone-chilling blasts, burning or freezing soldiers to death. The Lalai Kingdom's army, which had been attacking in an orderly fashion, immediately fell into chaos. 500 wyverns had suddenly appeared, and they had not been able to react in time. However, this was outside the Legacy Land, and many of the Blue Wolf Kingdom Stage 4 soldiers picked up their bows and vigorously shot at the wyverns. These arrows contained immense force as they flew out, piercing into a careless wyvern's body. The wyvern let out a pained cry. With its huge body, a single arrow wouldn't cause much damage to the wyvern, but hundreds of arrows were still quite dangerous to the wyvern. Chapter 10:15. Zhao Fu ordered all of the wyverns to be careful. He understood that they had to quickly finish this battle, or else they would suffer heavy losses. Boom! At that moment, Zhao Fu exploded out with his full strength, holding the Death Disaster Sword as he rushed at the Blue Wolf City Lords. Terrifying sword lights continuously slashed out, and ordinary city lords were unable to defend at all and continuously died at Zhao Fu's hands. With the wyvern's help on the ground, the Lulai Kingdom gradually gained the upper hand. The Blue Wolf Kingdom's side's expressions were quite unsightly. They had never thought that the Lulai Kingdom would have such an expert helping them. Now, it was clear that they were losing. Almost 200 of their city lords had been killed by Zhao Fu, and more people were dying on the ground. The Blue Wolf Kingdom's side could not help but think that they should retreat, or else they would suffer even more losses. However, even though they wanted to retreat, the Lulai Kingdom firmly held them back. Zhao Fu set his sights on the Blue Wolf Kingdom's general, and a sword light ferociously slashed towards the half-beast man. Moreover, the Lulai Kingdom's army also attacked, clashing with the defending half-beasts. The Lulai Kingdom had a great advantage over the Blue Wolf Kingdom, and they had more city lords than the Blue Wolf Kingdom. This was because Zhao Fu had moved many of the Lulai Kingdom's forces to the other two battlefronts, so it was no surprise that the Blue Wolf Kingdom would win. Pu, the half-beast man, was sent flying by Zhao Fu's attack, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. This was after he had exploded out with his City Lord Seal and General Seal's power. If it was an ordinary City Lord, he would have long since died. How could the other Blue Wolf Kingdom's city lords just watch as their general was killed? However, whether or not they could defend was another matter. The Qin royal seal within Zhao Fu's body continuously provided him with massive amounts of power, and the death disaster sword in his hand gave off an intense gray light. An eerie, deathly intent continuously corroded people's bodies, causing the city lords' hairs to stand on end and their bodies to tremble. Art! Pain cries sounded out as Zhao Fu dragged out a massive sword light, inundating the 30 or so city lords. Blood and corpses fell everywhere, and only 30 or so city lord seals gave off faint lights and floated in the air. Seeing such a terrifying scene, the Blue Wolf Kingdom's city lords did not dare to stay, and they could only quickly escape. The Blue Wolf Kingdom's army on the ground was no match for them, and they started to retreat. Behind them, the Lulai Kingdom's army had successfully defeated the Blue Wolf Kingdom's army, and they started to attack from the rear. On the other side, Zhao Fu and the Lulai Kingdom city lords continued to chase after the Blue Wolf Kingdom city lords, while the Lulai Kingdom's army continued to chase after the Blue Wolf Kingdom's army. In the end, the Lulai Kingdom's two armies met up and pincered the Blue Wolf Kingdom's army. The Blue Wolf Kingdom's army was almost completely wiped out, and most of its soldiers either died or surrendered. Most of the city lords died, and only 100 or so managed to escape. As for the Blue Wolf Kingdom's general, he had died because Zhao Fu had been chasing after him this entire time, and it was impossible for him to escape. The Lulai Kingdom's city lords smiled as they watched the battle. The Lulai Kingdom's general had died, and, as the Lulai Kingdom's people, they were naturally overjoyed. They were completely convinced by the cloaked figure standing in the air. If it wasn't for his help, the battle would have been completely different, and the Lulai Kingdom would have most likely lost. It was Zhao Fu who had saved the Lulai Kingdom, and with such an expert helping the Lulai Kingdom, who would dare to casually bully the Lulai Kingdom in the future? At such a chaotic time, they felt much more confident. "Sir, what should we do now?" Yi Xiong came before Zhao Fu and cupped his hands as he respectfully asked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu thought for a moment before replying. "First subdue the conquered regions and fortify the defensive lines. Don't attack the Blue Wolf Kingdom." Now that the Blue Wolf Kingdom had suffered a great defeat and had lost 70% of its soldiers and city lords, it was quite weak internally. If they seized this opportunity to attack, it would be an excellent opportunity. However, in the end, Zhao Fu gave up on this idea because it was a kingdom from another world. If they attacked, the neighboring kingdoms would also join in. The Lulai Kingdom was quite weak, and Zhao Fu felt that attacking another world was too risky. Before, the Blue Wolf Kingdom did not dare to attack the Lulai Kingdom, but because their king had been ambushed, they were in the right. Neither side wanted to start a world war, and the Blue Wolf Kingdom was attacking the Lulai Kingdom for revenge, so neither side would interfere. The second reason was that the Blue Wolf Kingdom had spoken to the neighboring kingdoms, which was why they dared to attack the Lulai Kingdom. Otherwise, No kingdom would dare to attack another world for no reason. Even if the Blue Wolf Kingdom destroyed the Lalai Kingdom, at most they would be able to take some resources and cities. They did not dare to take the territory, and they had promised to give it to the neighboring kingdoms. If they could obtain a large amount of land without doing anything, the neighboring kingdoms would naturally be quite happy. As such, they would not help the Lalai Kingdom and would only watch from the side. Now that Zhao Fu was going to attack the Blue Wolf Kingdom without any warning, it was possible that he would be chased back by the half-beast world as soon as he attacked. Unless he had the power to defend against a few kingdoms, he would have to face even more kingdoms. As such, Zhao Fu first repaired the broken defensive lines before sending messengers to the other kingdoms to see what their attitudes were. This was more troublesome and complicated. However, they were outside the land of inheritance, and there were more things that everyone had to pay attention to. They could not be as carefree as they were in the land of inheritance. Yi Xiong understood Zhao Fu's intentions, and after turning and leaving, he ordered his soldiers to pass on Zhao Fu's orders. News of Zhao Fu's victory quickly spread, and everyone was quite shocked. They had never thought that the Lalai Kingdom would win. What's going on? Isn't there an internal strife? Isn't there a huge difference in strength between them and the Blue Wolf Kingdom? Why did the Lalai Kingdom win in the end? All of this was because of a single person who had instantly turned the situation around for the Lalai Kingdom. Everyone was curious as to where this person had come from, but they also feared his terrifying power. The Lalai Kingdom's entire kingdom cheered, and Lu Yuyu and the others also smiled, feeling quite happy. Even though she had expected this result, Zhao Fu's performance had exceeded her expectations. He had obtained a great victory with minimal losses, and with such a man to rely on, she felt quite satisfied. The Blue Wolf Kingdom side was greatly panicked. They had prepared so much and were stronger than the Lalai Kingdom, but they had still lost so miserably. They had lost 70% of their forces, and it could be said that the Blue Wolf Kingdom had suffered a heavy blow. The Blue Wolf Kingdom's entire kingdom was in a state of panic, and the new king immediately went into a defensive state. He sent out messengers to other kingdoms to ask for help. Chapter 10:16. This aura was even more domineering than the aura that Zhao Fu had given off before, and it attacked the entire city. As such, the Lalai Kingdom's nation protecting formation was activated. All of the Lalai Kingdom's regions gave off a faint light, and massive waves of energy gathered towards the royal city, forming a powerful barrier that protected everyone within the royal city. The violet-clothed young man calmly smiled, and his expression did not change despite the nation protecting formation being activated as he said, "I am the young sect master of the 8 Dragons Essence sect. I heard that your kingdom's princess needs 300 cities. Is it possible for the princess to come out and meet with me? If it is suitable, I can give you 300 cities." The people below were in chaos, and soldiers quickly gathered. Lu Yuyu, who was within the palace, hurriedly came out with her people. Looking at the panicking people below, one of the 7 women in the sky was an extremely beautiful woman who gave off a bewitching aura. She was called Princess Chiomei, and she went up and hugged the violet-clothed young man's waist as she said coyly, "Husband, when will you be able to gather 8 princesses? I can't wait to serve husband and do it with you." The violet-clothed young man lightly laughed and rubbed the bewitching woman's bottom as he said, "You little slut, I can't do it now. When I gather 8 princesses and master my sect's supreme art, the 8 Dragons' divine art, I'll be the sect master of the 8 Dragons Essence sect. When that time comes, I'll satisfy you." Sensing the violet-clothed young man's actions, the bewitching woman's face became red, and she panted in his embrace. Next to her was a seductive and beautiful woman called Princess Han Nan. She went up and hugged the violet-clothed young man as she harumphed, "Husband, I also want one. I also want it. You can't be partial to this little demoness." The violet-clothed young man laughed and skillfully climbed up the woman's bottom, causing the woman to moan in his embrace. The remaining 5 women also went up and affectionately called him husband. The violet-clothed young man smiled as his hands roamed all over the women's bodies. At that moment, Lu Yu walked out with her people. Sensing this terrifying aura, she made preparations to use the Lulai Kingdom's nation armament at any moment. The little emperor was only 6 years old, so of course he did not know how to fight. As such, Lu Yu set up her nation armament to fight on its own. After all, anyone who could give off such a powerful aura definitely surpassed the Lulai Kingdom's level. She also knew about the 8 Dragons Essence sect. Even though it was not one of the ancient STEM domain's 5 great sects, it was not weak either. It had the strength of a dukedom kingdom and had existed for a long time. The Lulai Kingdom naturally could not afford to offend such a powerful sect, so Lu Yu could only endure their arrogant and domineering appearance. Now that she and Lu Jiwen were both Zhao Fu's women, the 6 desires demonic qi within their bodies made it, so that she did not want to leave Zhao Fu's side for even a second. She naturally knew that her daughter felt the same way, so she could only say courteously, "Young sect master, it's fine. My daughter has already been betrothed to someone else. I'm very sorry. Please return." "Humph. My husband has never been unable to obtain any woman he wants. Hurry up and call that princess out." A tall and slender woman with a cold and arrogant aura appeared in the sky. She was called Princess Han Shuang, and she coldly harumphed as she spoke to Lu Yu. She exploded out with a powerful aura and pressed down towards the royal city. Lu Yu felt a trace of anger within her heart, but in front of such power, she could only endure it. "Oomph, didn't you hear my husband's words? Hurry up and call that princess out. To be able to become my husband's woman is your kingdom's glory, or else my husband will destroy your kingdom." A woman in red clothes with bright red lips looked quite pretty, but gave off a barbaric aura as she spoke to Lu Yu. She was Princess Huiyin, a princess from the Fireword Kingdom. Lu Yu looked quite troubled. The Lulai Kingdom was not a match for the 8 Dragons Essence sect, and if Zhao Fu had not come, she would have happily called her daughter out. That way, not only would they obtain 300 cities, but they would also have the 8 Dragons Essence sect as their backer. However, they were now Zhao Fu's women, and it was only with Zhao Fu's help that the Lulai Kingdom had gotten through this crisis. Moreover, her body and soul needed Zhao Fu. Lu Yu felt quite troubled before making a decision. Just as she was about to say something, "Mother!" Lu Jiwen did not want to make things difficult for her mother, so she walked out and bowed to the violet-clothed young man as she said, "I am the Lulai Kingdom's Princess Royal, and I do indeed have a husband." The violet-clothed young man smiled and did not mind Lu Jiwen's words. His eyes gave off a violet light as he looked at Lu Jiwen and said, "Your looks are not bad, your figure is not bad, and your constitutions are suitable. Haha, I've finally gathered 8 princesses." "Wait." The violet-clothed young man felt that something was off, and he used his eye technique to take a closer look at Lu Jiwen. However, he found that she was already a virgin. "What a bummer. I finally found a suitable one, but she's already been touched by someone else." The violet-clothed young man felt quite angry and did not want to stay here any longer. She brought the women and turned into a ray of light and disappeared over the horizon. 300 cities for a princess was quite interesting. The violet-clothed young man had heard about this by accident, so he had come to take a look. However, he had returned in disappointment. The 8 Dragons Essence Sect's supreme art, the 8 Dragons Divine Art, required 8 princesses with large amounts of Phoenix Chi. Moreover, the 8 princesses had to have the same constitutions and birthdays, and they had to be virgins. The requirements were quite strict, but the power they would bring was immense. Dual cultivating with these 8 princesses would increase one's cultivation speed by many times, and they would be more powerful than ordinary arts. Most importantly, when this art was cultivated to the peak, it could block 8 fatal attacks. Since Lu Jiwen was not a virgin, she was useless to him. Moreover, he did not want to touch something that someone else had already touched, and he did not lack beauties. Zhao Fu sensed the changes in the Lulai Kingdom and gave some instructions before hurrying back to the royal city. Looking at the ray of light disappearing over the horizon, he slightly frowned and went to the palace. Why did you only come back now? Seeing Zhao Fu return, Lu Yu leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace and started to sob, wanting to cry out all the grievances she had felt. The soldiers in palace maids stared at this scene in shock. Even though Zhao Fu had done it with Lu Yu in private, she was the Empress Dowager. How could the late emperor's woman leap into another man's embrace and act so intimately? Lu Jiwen hurriedly called out to her mother a few times, and only then did Lu Yu come back to her senses. She let go of Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu softly asked, "What just happened?" Chapter 10:17. Zhao Fu did not want his women to suffer. Even though Zhao Fu had not fallen in love with them, as a man, Zhao Fu would still do his duty. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and gently wiped away the tears on Lu Yu's face as he comforted her. "Don't worry, I won't let you suffer in the future." Lu Yu felt a wave of warmth in her heart. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to worry about other people's gazes, she would have once again leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace. "How's the situation on the other side?" Lu Yu asked Zhao Fu as she returned to the main topic. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "It's a perfect ending, and we won't have to worry about the Blue Wolf Kingdom in the future. We dealt a heavy blow to them, and it will take a long time for them to recover. If it wasn't for the half-beast kingdoms nearby, I would have wanted to invade the half-beast world. Also, I've sent out ambassadors to the half-beast kingdom. If they don't interfere, the Lalai Kingdom can plan to attack the Blue Wolf Kingdom. Also, the half-beasts that we've subdued are being transported back, and I plan to use them." Lu Yu responded with a smile. "Many thanks to you this time. Now that you're done, come to this consort's room. This consort has prepared a dozen or so palace maids with good aptitudes for you. Today, this consort will properly reward you." Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, "There's no need for that. I still need to prepare some other things, and the other places are not stable yet." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, thinking about the current situation, Lu Yu could only listen to Zhao Fu. A few days later, the Blue Wolf Kingdom gave some unknown benefits, but the surrounding kingdoms expressed their support for the Blue Wolf Kingdom. Of course, it was just verbal support, but Zhao Fu did not dare to act against the Blue Wolf Kingdom, so he could only give up on attacking it. At the same time, he constructed even sturdier defenses to defend against attacks from the Blue Wolf Kingdom and others, and the Lalai Kingdom gradually became more stable. As for the half-beast people who had surrendered, they were properly trained. It was impossible for them to attack the half-beast world right now, but perhaps they could in the future. When that time came, these half-werewolves would be of some use, and it could also be considered preparation for the future. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu once again returned to the human world. Even now, such a large area had not been cleared out. It was incredibly slow, but they were doing their best, so Zhao Fu did not say much. The other 3 continents were not peaceful either. Undercurrents were surging in all directions. "Stop the expansion of Qin's ambitions, or we will unite with other continents to attack Qin." But they also understood that this was just to cheer themselves up. Qin would still launch an attack. Qin's wild ambition would not be satisfied, so they had to convince all the forces on this matter. Not only the players, but also all the system forces. Only by uniting like this could they resist Qin. Although Qin was a huge threat, before Qin officially launched the attack, there were still many people who hoped to get lucky, so it was difficult to persuade them. During this period, Qin's development was the fastest, followed by Tina Pendragon's Great Britain Empire. It had already expanded to 600 regions and was a level 6 barony. The human world only had these 2 kingdoms, and the power of a kingdom far surpassed that of an ordinary faction. As such, they could develop incredibly quickly in the legacy land, but it would not be the same in the outside world. Moreover, the human world would only have these 2 kingdoms. The dynasties that had the opportunity to establish their own kingdoms had been delayed due to many things. For example, Akhenaten's faction could be ranked 3rd in the human world, and his dynasty had immense fate and power. However, because the southern continent had been conquered, they had been forced to relocate. A large amount of their fate had been lost, and the Pharaoh dynasty was no longer as powerful as before. Now, Chinlak time. This was the 5th year of the Heaven Awakened world, and there were not many people in the human world. The human world, the dark demon world, and the fish scale world were all developing, and there were not many battles. As such, Zhao Fu had quite a bit of free time. This time, Zhao Fu once again went to the Heaven Spirit Steel and continued to say a few lines from the Book of Tao, pretending to be a saint. This caused everyone to fall silent, and they felt heartfelt admiration. They had never seen such a kind-hearted saint before. Zhao Fu had always done this, and he would only say a few lines each time before not saying anything else and pretending to be mysterious. Of course, this was for his own benefits, or else how could Zhao Fu be so bored as to do this? This was not free, but it was not compulsory either. Zhao Fu said that he was lacking a few things, and if someone fulfilled the requirements, Zhao Fu could continue speaking. As such, Zhao Fu obtained many good things, including all sorts of materials, equipment, skills, and items. He would be able to obtain a large pile every time, and they were all of good quality. After all, there were countless Heaven Spirit Steel accounts, and those who could enter the chat area were all high-grade accounts. However, in comparison to the number of people, there were very few people who would give out things, and most people wanted to obtain them for free. In actuality, Zhao Fu could set up a special room for them to give out good things, and Zhao Fu could create a room for free with his Supreme level account. However, there was a limit to the number of people who could enter. Moreover, if others asked Zhao Fu questions about their cultivation or if they did not understand, Zhao Fu would not be able to answer them. It would be too easy for him to be exposed, and he would not be able to act as casually as he could in the chat area. Higher being, are you accepting disciples? I'm a super genius, and I definitely won't disappoint you. My daughter is already 18 years old and is still a virgin. Sir, would you be interested? Senior, I don't quite understand these lines. Are you willing to explain them to me? After obtaining a wave of things, Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at these private messages and blocked them. These people did not have much value, and they would only return some benefits if Zhao Fu gave them some benefits. In fact, some even dared to slander Zhao Fu. After all, the Heaven Spirit Steel was like the internet, and people could do whatever they wanted in the internet, but they could not threaten the real world. Zhao Fu was quite satisfied with his gains this time. He had only casually said a few words, and he had obtained so much. Apart from this, Zhao Fu also found a useful item, which was a type of liquid called the 1,000-flower liquid. This 1,000-flower liquid was made from thousands of spirit flowers, and it was black. It was very helpful to the growth of flowers, and Zhao Fu wanted to use it to make the world flower grow. The world flower had been planted for more than a year, and he had used up all sorts of spirit items, but it still had not bloomed. Perhaps this 1,000-flower liquid would have some effect. Chapter 10:18. Zhao Fu looked at this colorful account and immediately had a bad feeling. After all, only a higher being could have this kind of account, and Zhao Fu was just a fake. He did not know how he had obtained a supreme level account. However, if the other party really was a higher being, Zhao Fu did not have the guts. He could not help but think about the fear of encountering a true higher being outside the legacy land. And it was not something that Zhao Fu could contend with right now. Facing this account question, Zhao Fu looked quite confused and did not know what the Saint Realm was. Within Zhao Fu's body, the golden dragon rolled his eyes and said, Zhao Fu, you don't even know this? It's the divine path comprehended after breaking through to stage 9. This person might really be a higher being, so it's best if you don't come into contact with him. Hearing this, Zhao Fu understood. However, his cultivation was only at stage 7, so how could he say what he comprehended after stage 9? Hearing the golden dragon say that this person might really be a higher being, Zhao Fu immediately became wary and thought to himself, could be that I've been too pretentious? I actually invited a higher being over? Facing this question that could possibly be from a higher being, Zhao Fu did not dare to reply at all. After all, higher beings' methods could reach a heaven-defying level, and there was no need for Zhao Fu to take the risk. After all, there was no benefit in doing so. However, at that moment, the other person sent another message. Don't worry. This sovereign has no ill intentions, and I know that you're just a small cultivator. Zhao Fu looked quite awkward. In the chat area, Zhao Fu had been sought after by tens of thousands of people, but this higher being had seen through him. Feeling that this higher being really did not have any ill intentions, Zhao Fu could not help but think for a while and decided to talk to this higher being. After all, he was dealing with someone who stood at the peak of this world. Even though there was great danger in contacting someone like this, there were also great opportunities. Senior, I am indeed a minor cultivator. Zhao Fu didn't hide anything and spoke honestly and respectfully. The mighty figure on the other side quickly replied, Your matter in the chat area did attract some of our attention. However, the true Tao is not something that you can talk about. It's because the Tao scripture you talked about is very top-notch. That's why so many people believe it. But in our eyes, we can tell a glance. You should be from a new world, and what you're saying is the Bible of your world, right? Zhao Fu looked at his words and felt quite shocked. He had never thought that this person would be able to tell. He thought for a moment before replying, Senior, you're right, but how did you know? The higher being replied, I'm quite familiar with this type of book, so I'll naturally understand after reading it. This time, I wanted to ask you to take a look at it. If you have any requests, as long as they're suitable, I can agree to them. Zhao Fu could not help but feel delighted. He could actually ask for benefits from a higher being. This was a massive benefit, and for someone who stood at the peak of this world, even an ordinary item would be incredibly important to Zhao Fu. At that moment, Zhao Fu thought of all sorts of things. Just as he was about to speak, he thought about the various quests that could kill him, and he once again sank into his thoughts. Whether it was because of himself, or because of Tuoba Qing's human origin, Zhao Fu would have to face the threat of a higher being in the future. This made Zhao Fu feel quite uneasy, and it was the biggest problem that had been bothering Zhao Fu. With Qing's power, facing a higher being was almost impossible. Perhaps he could establish a friendly relationship with this higher being, and perhaps it would be of great use in the future. As such, Zhao Fu made this decision. Senior, since you want to take a look, I'll send it to you. Also, our world has all sorts of scriptures. I wonder if Senior is interested? I can send them to Senior. The higher being replied with some shock. Of course, this sovereign is quite curious about your world. There's actually someone who can write such profound Tao words. If we can comprehend them, it will be of great benefit to existences like us. You don't want any more benefits? This sovereign can give you a top-grade heaven-grade art, an earth-grade divine artifact, and a marquise kingdom. Zhao Fu could not help but feel awed by the higher being's power. These things were things that others could not even dream of obtaining, yet this higher being had casually given them. The last reward was a marquise kingdom. Even after developing for so long, Qin had only become a marquise kingdom. With the power of a marquise kingdom, it reigned above a barony kingdom, and in some remote regions, it could be counted as a local tyrant. However, in order to obtain greater benefits, Zhao Fu could only tactfully refuse and order people to collect all of the scriptures, whether they were Taoist scriptures, Buddhist scriptures, or Christian scriptures. Following this, Zhao Fu gave them to the higher being through the heaven spirit steel. After a while, the higher being felt quite satisfied. As such, Zhao Fu could not help but go to the dark demon world and fish scale world to collect all sorts of scriptures. However, after giving them to the higher being did not even spare them a glance, making Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. Only after asking did he find out that the scriptures only focused on cultivation, which was too tacky. On the other hand, the human world focused on making breakthroughs in one's mind. Zhao Fu had never thought that things would turn out like this. The human world was not a cultivation world, so the scriptures naturally focused on changing one's mind. As such, the higher being had taken a liking to them. From what the higher being had said, The virtuous Tao scripture was the one he liked the most. He said that if he could modify it and add in some other content, it would become an incredibly profound cultivation technique. Zhao Fu was quite surprised by this. Afterwards, the higher being kept saying what he wanted. Because the scriptures that Zhao Fu had given him were quite good, he was even willing to give Zhao Fu a dukedom royal city. This caused Zhao Fu's heart to jump. After all, the dukedom royal city was the royal city of a dukedom kingdom, and yet it was willing to give such a thing. The higher being's methods were simply too terrifying. For the sake of his future benefits, Zhao Fu resisted the temptation and refused the higher being. Afterwards, he became friends with the higher being on the heaven spirit steel, and Zhao Fu's final goal was achieved. The books that were useless to Zhao Fu were actually so useful, making Zhao Fu feel incredibly happy. Following this, Zhao Fu took the 1,000-flower liquid to where the world flower was grown. This place had become a sea of flowers, and the entire region was filled with all sorts of flowers that would never wither. Countless butterflies danced about, creating a beautiful scene. The world flower was now 120 meters tall and had 5 wide leaves. Its branches were 5 meters thick, and there was a flower bud at the top. This flower bud was incredibly tender and gave off a jade-like luster. Chapter 1019. Another 2 months later, Zhao Fu called over 4 of Qin's most outstanding Outlander leaders. One was Log, who was Old Log. He was no longer old, and with Qin's help, the weak goblin village chief had stage 5 strength and had grasped all sorts of seals. His status was undoubtedly the most prestigious among the goblins, and he was one of the Outlander generals who had followed Zhao Fu for the longest. He was quite proficient in magic attacks. The second was Doke, the kobold chief. Zhao Fu had subdued him when they had attacked the kobold village, and he was one of the Outlander generals who had followed Zhao Fu for the longest. His status was the most prestigious among the kobolds, and he was quite powerful. He was proficient with spears and had stage 5 cultivation. He had grasped all sorts of seals and could not be underestimated. The third was Daisy, the elf chief. She had the most prestigious status among the elves, and she was also one of the Outlander generals who had followed Zhao Fu for the longest. She was already incredibly beautiful, and after fusing with the Holy Church bloodline, her beauty had become even greater, and she had a trace of holiness to her. She was also quite powerful, and she was quite proficient in magic attacks, and had grasped Qin's heavy seals. The last was Sar, the Orc chief. Back when the Orc faction had been destroyed, he had chosen a general from the Orcs. His performance had been quite good, and he was quite ferocious in battle. He had made many contributions to Qin. He was also at stage 5, and he liked to use large sabers. He had the most prestigious status among the Orcs, and he had grasped Qin's heavy seals. Zhao Fu naturally had his reasons for calling them over. They had long since fused with General Fate, and now that Qin had launched many large-scale battles, he had killed countless generals. Many of Qin's people had also fused with General Fate. Now, Zhao Fu wanted them to fuse with General Armaments. During this period of time, Qin had collected another 400 soldier souls, which would allow Qin to have 4 more General Armaments. There is no need to explain how important General Armaments were. Zhao Fu gave the soldier souls to them and had them immediately fuse with them. The 4 of them obeyed and stood in a corner. They looked a little excited because Zhao Fu had actually given such an important thing to the 4 of them. It was clear how much importance Zhao Fu placed on them. The 40 fused divine weapon souls gave off large amounts of white light and floated into the sky from the 4 people's hands. With the 4 of them as the center, they formed 4 circles. Following this, the divine weapon soul in the sky gave off a powerful aura, and the white light it gave off became larger and larger until it formed 40 massive orbs of light. Boom! An explosion sounded out as the 40 orbs of light gave off an even more powerful aura than before, forming a wild gale that spread out. Within the orbs of light, the corporeal soldiers' bodies started to melt like ice before turning into traces of violet aura, and the 10 orbs of light resonated with each other. Boom, 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 boom. For massive explosions sounded out as clouds swirled and the heavens and earth dimmed. For massive violet stars giving off noble starlight and boundless auras broke through the restrictions of the day and descended into the sky. At that moment, the people from the other continents sensed these ripples and could not help but frown. After the destruction of the real world, most people's fate stars had long since awakened, so they could sense their fate stars very strongly. Looking at the 4 stars in the distance, everyone's expressions dimmed, and they lightly sighed because that was where Qin was. Because they had seen this many times, they were not surprised. Their generals had all awakened general stars, but they did not have general armaments, so they could not use general stars at all. Over at the Midland continent, Logue and Daisy raised their staffs, while Sar and Doke raised their spears and sabers. Boom, 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 boom. The 4 of them exploded out with their full power, and a terrifying aura spread out like a corporeal shockwave. A massive gale blew, causing the ground to crack and boulders to roll, and trees to madly sway. By the side, Zhao Fu unleashed his Emperor's domain to defend against the berserk wind. The 4 of them started to give off different colored auras, which gathered into aura flames, and their auras became more and more powerful. Boom! Another massive explosion sounded out as the 4 of them exploded out with intense light, which formed 4 pillars of light that gave off terrifying auras as they shot into the sky and slammed into the 4 massive violet stars. Following this, the 4 violet stars started to change colors. One gradually became black and gave off black starlight, giving off an aura of destruction and conquering. Zhao Fu was quite familiar with this star because it was the Army Destroyer star, a general star that Sar had awakened. One gradually became silver-white like the moon and gave off gentle starlight. The aura it gave off was also gentle and contained a type of yin qi. This was the lunar star, a fate star that Daisy had awakened. The lunar star was like the moon, and the 5 elements were yin and water. It was like a home, wealth, mother, wife, daughter, or female. It was like a bed, a hotel. One of the 14 main stars of the A-grade star, the celestial monarch. The commoners also saw the lunar star lord as a moth. The commoners' worship of the moon was first recorded in the book of history. The sun, moon, and stars were the heavenly sex, while the dye, river, and sea were the earthly sex. The heavenly sex and earthly sex were the 6 sex. The lunar star was of the water attribute and did not enter the north and south dipper. It was the essence of the moon in the heavens, and it turned wealth into wealth and became the owner of a house. The lunar star was of the ridge, and it controlled the 3 meridians, which was gentle and moist. One gradually became yellow, a noble yellow, and it gave off a yellow light. It gave off the aura of a general star, and it gave off a powerful sense of suppression. This star was called the Celestial Star, and it was a star that Logue had awakened. As the name suggested, it was a natural prime minister, and it had the life of a prime minister. Tianxiang Star was a professional term for the Purple Star Dome number. It was one of the 14 A-class main stars of the Purple Star Dome number. Among the 4 major types of the Purple Star Dome number, it was the last star of the leader type. This celestial star was called the Imprint Star, and the word imprint vividly showed how cautious and considerate it was. It no longer looked like a Yang-type main star, and it was often mistaken for a Yang-type main star. Zhao Fu could not help but feel quite shocked. He had never thought that Lo would awaken the celestial star. In actuality, if Li Si or Shangyang used their general armaments, they would both have celestial stars, and they would be prime ministers. However, there was a shortage of general armaments, so Zhao Fu naturally had to use them on the battlefield. As for ministers, Li Si and Shangyang, they naturally would not have them. The last star gradually became a fiery red and gave off a fiery light. The light was incredibly blinding, and it gave off a searing aura. Chapter 10:20. The Sun Star and the Moon Star were opposites, and they were the 2 stars that could directly correspond to the stars in the sky. the sun and the moon. The sun star was called the noble star in ancient times, and it was also called the prime emperor's star. It was similar to the North Star, but it had different characteristics. Ancient books said that the sun star was one of the three dukes. The three dukes were ministers, and even though they had high positions and were incredibly noble, they had to be bestowed, appointed by the emperor. Zhao Fu had never thought that Doke would be able to awaken the sun star, and he was quite surprised. However, this was quite normal. It couldn't be that only humans could awaken general stars, right? Moreover, general stars were determined by a person's fate. What kind of fate one had would naturally determine what general star they would awaken. The four stars gave off their own starlight, and they gave off powerful auras as they lit up the heavens and earth. Under these four stars, countless people seemed incredibly small. The four pillars of light gradually weakened, and the light that the four people gave off also gradually disappeared. However, at that moment, the four stars exploded out with terrifying power, causing all of the clouds in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers to dissipate. The four stars gave off intense starlight, and four pillars of light descended onto Logue and the other three people's bodies. The four people received the baptism of the general stars, and their auras started to change. They became more and more powerful, and terrifying auras rippled out in all directions. Finally, the pillars of starlight disappeared, and the epic Great Desolate with scepter in Logue's hand became yellow and seemed to be made of metal. It gave off a noble yellow light, and starlight flowed around it as the words Heaven Minister were engraved on it. Daisy's epic Great Magic Staff also became silver-white, as if it was made of silver. It gave off a gentle white light, and starlight flowed around it as the words Moon were engraved on it. This was the Moon Magic Staff. Doke's spear also became a fiery red iron spear that gave off a searing aura. There seemed to be flames on its surface, and starlight flowed around it as the words Sun were engraved on it. This was the Sun Spear. Finally, Sar's wolf-headed saber became a black gold saber that gave off a ferocious and savage aura. Starlight flowed around it as the words Army Destroyer were engraved on it. This was the Army Destroyer saber. Looking at the general armaments in their hands, Zhao Fu smiled and looked at the general armament stats. The general armaments were all the same, but the general armaments were all different. The final attribute of the Heaven Minister Scepter was the Heaven Minister Army. It was an all-round type of soldier. Not only did it increase attack and defense, but it also increased speed and recovery. It was more suitable for support-type activities. The Lunar Magic Staff's final attribute was the Lunar Army. The best effect of this army was that they could absorb the power of the moon. If they moved at night, their battle strength would increase by many times. The last attribute of the Sun Spear was the Sun Army. The best effect of this army was that it could absorb the power of the sun like the lunar star, increasing its combat power by several times during the day. Finally, the Army Destroyer Saber was the same as the Army Destroyer General Weapon. This was because the four general armaments were all top-tier epic-grade equipment. Now that they had fused with the General Star's power, they had greatly increased. They were all level 2 sane armaments, and they were already incredibly powerful. Now, Qin had 16 general armaments, which was quite a large number. After all, no one else in the human world had a single general armament, and Zhao Fu was only 8 general armaments away from being able to fuse a king armament. Even though he did not know the exact information about a king armament, Zhao Fu had a shard before, and its power far surpassed that of an ordinary general armament. As such, Zhao Fu looked forward to the day when he could fuse a king armament. After looking at the information, Zhao Fu returned the general armaments to everyone and celebrated. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the blood refining pool and looked at the progress of refining the primogenitor statue. Because they had both come to the Midland continent and conquered the fish scale continent, as well as captured a large number of people, there were now many types of blood. The speed at which the primogenitor statue was being refined naturally became much faster, and the primogenitor statue itself started to go through changes, such as growing blood-red hair and faintly black skin. Zhao Fu did not know what the primogenitor statue would be like in the end, but with his current speed, it would still take him 180 years to completely refine it. It seemed that he had to work hard to unify the human world and use the world's power to speed up the refining process. Another month later, 3 rays of demonic light shot into the sky, causing the weather to change and clouds to swirl. 3 massive auras spread out as 3 terrifying images appeared in the sky. One looked like a devil, one had the face of a demon, and one had a demonic sword. The 3 images all gave off dense demonic chi and gave off powerful might, causing people to feel terror and tremble. These were the 3 sects that had been re-established. In the future, only nation armaments would be refined and sect armaments would be distributed, increasing the number of top-tier experts in Qin. Zhao Fu had already given up his position as the sect master of the demon god sect and given it to Elise. He had also given her the sect armament. Zhao Fu had appointed Zhao Mo as the sect master of the demon ghost sect. Zhao Fu had appointed Zhao Sha as the sect master of the demon killing sect, and Zhao Fu had appointed Gania as the sect master of the demon sword sect. It was best for the sect master to have talent in cultivation and walk the path of a top-tier expert rather than a general or marquis. Only then would they be able to bring out the true power of the sect and bring out the power of the sect armaments. As such, Zhao Fu would not appoint Bai Qi, Wang Jian, and the other generals as sect masters. After all, they were mainly responsible for leading troops in a battle, and if they were appointed as sect masters, it would seem quite strange. At the same time, Zhao Fu would not appoint ministers either. Zhao Mo had once been a demon's sovereign king, and Zhao Fu would have him walk the path of a sect in the future. After all, Qin could only have one king. Zhao Sha's demonic bloodline meant that he was destined to become a top-tier expert, so he was very suitable to be nurtured. Finally, Gania was Qin's #1 swordsman. With his talent and comprehension, not nurturing him would be a waste of resources. Elise and Zhao Mo were Qin's top-tier experts, while Zhao Sha and Gania were relatively weak. However, only the 4 of them had the potential to become top-tier experts. However, Zhao Fu felt that there were not enough people. Qin did not lack generals, but it seemed that it was starting to lack genius cultivators. They would be of great use in the future. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that he could not delay this matter any longer. This world could not lack soldiers and top-tier experts. Qin needed top-tier experts, and Zhao Fu's strength was limited by himself. Chapter 10:21. The meaning of a sect order was to encourage people to join a sect and also to vigorously support the development and construction of a sect. This was because a sect was the best place to nurture top-tier experts. Most of the world's experts came from a sect, so it was necessary to vigorously develop a sect. No matter if it was the system or the content of a sect, it had to be the same as an ordinary sect. It was best to nurture people from a young age and accept children under 16 years old as disciples. Zhao Fu had only started to cultivate after entering the Heaven Awakened world, so his cultivation was quite far behind people of the same age. This was even with Zhao Fu having Heaven Grade. Without Heaven Grade, who knew how far behind Zhao Fu would have fallen? In the future, Great Qin would no longer focus on the development of academies and would instead focus on developing sects. Both were quite important. One was to strengthen the culture, and the other was to strengthen the sects themselves. This was the path that Great Qin would take in the future. Zhao Fu also focused on the sect and helped the 100 schools of thought develop. After all, the 100 schools of thought's methods were quite extraordinary and would be of great help to him. However, a few days later, a letter was delivered to Qin's palace from Great Tangsley family. Zhao Fu frowned and did not even want to look at it, planning to destroy it. However, the messenger said, "You must have His Majesty read it. If you don't, you'll regret it in the future." Hearing this, Zhao Fu frowned and opened the letter. He found that it was written by Li Zhe, and it was not an apology like last time. Instead, it was cursing at Zhao Fu and Zhao Fu's mother. It said that Zhao Fu was an unfilial bastard who dared to act like an animal and forced the Li family into such a miserable state. It also said that Zhao Fu's mother was a slut and a trashy woman, and that he had played with her because he thought highly of her. Back then, he had been too soft-hearted and would have killed Zhao Fu and his mother if he had known this would happen. Looking at these letters, Zhao Fu felt a wave of fury rise up in his heart, and he almost coughed up blood. In the end, he looked at the contents of the letters and decided that if he wanted to end everything, he would have to go to the Western continent by himself. Seeing this, Zhao Fu coldly laughed and casually threw the letters away, tearing them to shreds. This was evidently a trap, and there were countless people lying in ambush there. They wanted to enrage Zhao Fu and lure Zhao Fu over so that they could kill Zhao Fu. If Zhao Fu died, the Qin's empire would most likely collapse. The Li family knew that Zhao Fu would go because with Zhao Fu's status, he definitely would not suffer such humiliation. Zhao Fu was the person with the most authority in the human world and could do whatever he wanted in the human world. Who had dared to write a letter to curse him? What's more, that person was Zhao Fu's father. If it was anyone else, they definitely would not be able to endure it. However, Zhao Fu would not go. They had definitely prepared a killing move for him, and it would be quite powerful. They must have the confidence to kill him, which was why they dared to make such a decision. Zhao Fu would not be so stupid as to go. After all, he had been enduring since he was young, and it was not a big deal. Zhao Fu no longer cared about the Li family, and if he cared too much about his previous identity, Zhao Fu would lose. Moreover, Qin had already cleared out 1/5 of the Midland continent and was about to truly control the Midland continent, the Southern continent, and the Netherwater continent. They were the ones who were anxious because once they finished clearing out the Midland continent, Qin would immediately attack. The entire human world would once again become chaotic, and their situation would become even more difficult as they would have to face the most direct attacks from Qin. If Zhao Fu went, it would be as they wished. If he did not go, he would anger them and make them feel incredibly anxious. In the future, destroy anything that the Li family sends over. There's no need to send it to us. Zhao Fu deeply breathed in and calmed himself down. He placed his focus on Qin's development and ordered people to gather information on the remaining continents and prepare a plan of attack. It was now June, and it was another scorching summer. The sunlight scorched the ground, and heat spread everywhere. Cicadas continuously cried out, making people feel quite annoyed. The fifth summer was even hotter than usual. However, things were different for Qin, and everyone looked quite delighted. A massive pillar of black light stood between the heavens and the earth, and countless clouds quickly gathered, forming a massive vortex. Large winds blew away the heat, bringing with them a coolness. 9 massive black dragons spiraled in the sky, stirring up the winds and clouds. They gave off an unimaginable might, creating a shocking scene. After more than a year, Qin had finally unified the Midland continent and built the Great Wall, making the entire Midland continent his territory. However, the Southern continent and the Netherwater continent had not been taken care of yet. Qin was now a level 11 Marquisate kingdom because there were 14,570 regions in the Midland continent. Marquisate kingdoms needed 1,000 regions to level up, but leveling up to a dukedom kingdom required unifying the world. There were at least tens of thousands of regions in a world, while most kingdoms were level 9. As such, dukedom kingdoms were quite special. After leveling up to level 9, Marquisate kingdoms could still level up, but they needed twice the number of regions, which was 2,000 regions. A level 11 Marquisate kingdom's stats were naturally powerful, and it had great kingdom fate and countless residents. City name: Qin Royal City, Human King. Level: Marquisate Royal City, level 11. City area: 12429,400 square kilometers. City territory: 163,242,1800 square kilometers. Popular support: 86. Special stats: territory crop output plus 400%, territory crop growth time minus 400%, Population limit plus 220%. Resident stats plus 28. Soldier stats plus 33%. Population attraction plus 300%. High-grade attraction plus 300%. Subsidiary village limit 1809690 cities. Fragrant Moon City, Black Soul City, Greatwood City, Water Spirit City, Snake City, Medicinal Valley City, Ocean City. Great Qin's population had now reached 26 billion people and 2 billion soldiers. There were 1 for billion stage 1 soldiers, 70 million stage 2 soldiers, 5 million stage 3 soldiers, and 100,000 stage 4 soldiers. This did not include those who did not have stage 1 cultivation yet. Great Qin's population had reached 26 billion. Great Qin controlled 27,570 regions, and this was all of the regions. Including the Southern Continent and Netherwater Continent, there were only 14,570 regions that Great Qin controlled. It had 1 marquisate royal city, 3 barony cities, 9 capital cities, and 25,000 great cities. This did not include the 20,000 cities in the Southern Continent, 6,521 cities, 9,860 towns, and 358,9489 villages. Because it had 14,570 regions, it had 40,210 counties, which meant that it had 40,210 county heads, 14,570 governors, 1,457 barons, 145 marquises, 14 dukes, and 1 earl. Chapter 1022. It could be said that Qin's strength had once again increased by many times. There were now 40,000 or so counties, which meant that Qin could have 40,000 more civil officials to defend the Qin kingdom. If one included the other cities and generals, Qin's true strength would be monstrous. With his strength, the other 3 continents would not be able to take down Qin at all. Now, only Qin kingdom could attack them, and they would not have to worry about them anymore. There was something else that Zhao Fu felt quite troubled about, which was the 33 corps that had appeared. Before, Qin had 23 special corps, which had taken a lot of effort. The main thing was that there were very few special vessels, and each vessel required great power. Moreover, the 23 corps seemed to have used up all of Qin's special corps, and there did not seem to be anything that could be used as vessels. This gave Zhao Fu a headache. Could it be that he could only create ordinary corps? At that moment, Zhao Fu could not help but think of the sects, the 100 schools of thought, and many other powerful sects. They could be vessels for corps. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu could not help but smile. However, they were only submitting to Qin, and their sects would still belong to them. He had to explain this to them and test whether or not they were suitable. The 4 sects that Zhao Fu had taken down were definitely suitable, as the sects in the Heaven-Awakened world were not any weaker than dynasties. After subtracting 4 from the 33, there were still 29 left. A few days later, Qin told the various factions about this, and they were quite cooperative. However, after testing, only a few were suitable. After all, most sects were not suitable for fighting, such as the School of Legalism, the School of Famers, the School of Calligraphers, and the School of Medicine. These sects' power was displayed in other areas, so they could not be used as weapons in battle. There were a few suitable ones, a clan, which was a faction with the most powerful legacies. It could be said that they were slightly more powerful than the 5 great ancient kingdoms of China. The second was the School of Taoism, the third was the School of Military, the fourth was the School of Martial, the 5th was the School of Qi, and the 6th was the School of Yin-Yang. There were a total of 7. After subtracting 7 from 29, there were still 22 left, and they still lacked many special carriers. At that moment, Zhao Fu could not help but think that on the Lulai Kingdom battlefield, both sides had cavalry corps, but Qin did not seem to have one. With how powerful cavalry corps were, it was impossible that Qin did not have one. So Zhao Fu wanted to nurture Qin's cavalry corps. First of all, Qin's main mount, the Black God Horse, had been strengthened several times. The black god horse nest grade was already very high, and it had been infused with a trace of divinity, so it was naturally more powerful. Zhao Fu went over to test it and found that it was indeed possible. There was one more carrier. In addition to his main mount, the black god horse, Qin had also cultivated two kinds of regular mounts. One was the orc's giant wolf, and the other was the elf's giant deer. Of these two types of mounts, the giant deer was quite docile, and ordinary people could ride them. However, they were quite difficult to control, and the elves were quite good at it. As for the giant wolves, most people would not dare to ride them, as just the ferocity of the giant wolves was enough to make people feel afraid. Moreover, only orcs were suitable for riding giant wolves. If other people rode on giant wolves, they would not be able to control them at all. Because of this, Qin had only developed some giant wolves and giant deer, but he did not have a large number of them. In actuality, Qin already had quite a lot of orcs and elves, and there were already over 100 million of them. Zhao Fu felt that it would be no problem for him to develop two cavalry corps. The giant wolf den and giant deer den were both bound to cities, which was a type of racial advantage. If humans wanted to obtain mounts, they would have to find them themselves. Zhao Fu went to an orc great city and took out a corps to test. He found that it was suitable to be used as a vessel for a corps, but it was too weak and could only be used as an ordinary corps. This was naturally not a problem for Zhao Fu, as the giant wolf den required an orc blood crystal. Orc blood crystals were condensed from countless orcs' blood, and it would take at least 100,000 orcs to condense a single orc blood crystal. Increasing the orc blood crystal would increase the giant wolf den's power, and Qin did not lack orcs. As such, Zhao Fu ordered people to collect orc blood. The giant deer den was the same. It required elf blood crystals. As such, Zhao Fu ordered people to collect elf blood. Of course, Zhao Fu did not kill people to obtain blood. He instead gave a bit to each person. After all, there were hundreds of millions of people, and even a bit of blood was a massive amount. Through the orc and elf races' secret techniques, the large amount of blood fused into two blood-red crystals that were 1 meter wide. They gave off powerful auras and a dense stench of blood, and people could not help but retreat. Following this, Zhao Fu fused the two blood-red crystals into the giant wolf den and giant deer den immediately. Two rays of blood-red light shot into the sky, and a blood-red aura spread out. The images of the giant wolf and giant deer appeared in the sky and gave off a heaven-shaking roar. The den's power continuously rose, causing many abnormal signs. As expected from a blood crystal made from the blood of hundreds of millions of people, it met the requirements and could be used as a vessel. Zhao Fu only had 22 core, and now he could reduce that by 3, leaving only 17. This was quite a large number, and where could he find suitable vessels? Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and could not help but laugh. Back when Qin had become a level 1 Marquisate kingdom, it had not been unified at all. Now that it had unified the Midland continent, there were many dynasties that had conquered it. Even though these dynasties' stats were quite ordinary and the strength of the core was quite ordinary, they were definitely much more powerful than ordinary core. As such, he could use these dynasties as vessels. Zhao Fu ordered people to do some calculations and found that there were 14 dynasties that could be used as vessels. After subtracting 14 from the original 17, there were only 3 left. Zhao Fu thought about it and found that he had missed out on a powerful city, which was the Devil City, which was Masanori Hanno's city. Ever since Zhao Fu had subdued the Devil City, he had not gone there. However, the Devil City was incredibly powerful, and the ordinary residents all had a trace of devil bloodline. There were also all sorts of powerful devils within the city, and ordinary people did not dare to take a step in. Adding on the Devil City, there were only 2 slots left. Zhao Fu could not think of anything else, so he could only leave it there for now. Now that he was about to start a war in the human world, he would definitely fulfill the requirements. Following this, Zhao Fu started to create a core. Zhao Fu first went to the Black God Horse Den and fused the core heart into it, causing a formless aura to spread out. Countless black god horses reared their heads back and neighed, and the Horse King beside Zhao Fu, Black Forest, did the same. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.